again, I apologize for that, and I hope you have happy New Year's.
I accept the
And
apology. I do.
your fat ass thinks you're better than people
Then
who
you
go out. What was your job before this? Just sitting around taking care of old people. Your
no.
fat ass isn't competent. Your fat ass can't do shit. Your fat ass can only talk.
Why
That's
not?
it,
Okay,
dude.
first off, I'll perfectly give you a chance to say if you want to make fun of my image, it's true. Then I am overweight. Can we see you?
Disgustingly overweight, dude. Yeah,
Can
you
we
can
see
see
you?
me.
Can
What
we
the
see?
fuck?
Put your
Sure.
cam on. Put your cam on. Right? That seems fair. If you want to
Sure,
criticize
dude.
my
I'm not
appearance, no,
fucking
no,
fat.
no, no. It's perfectly fine. If you want to criticize my appearance, it's totally fair game. I don't mind at all. Let's see your cam.
All right, sure. Hang on.
Okay. As we wait for that, my previous job was working about 80 hours a week on average of working with adults with disabilities such as autism.
That's what I said.
You said working with old people. There we go. Look at
Yeah.
this guy. What a fucking looker.
What? I'm not fat, dude. What did I say that I was?
Well,
I'm
hey,
at
hey,
least
hey, hey,
healthy.
hey.
I'm at least
You're right.
healthy. You
I,
know
I
that?
can't tell if you're fat or not from your face. It definitely looks like I weigh more than you. But man, quite the looker to be talking about other people's appearance. There we go.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so
Let's talk
okay.
about your face. Let's talk
Let's do
about
it.
your
Go
fat
ahead.
face,
Let's talk
dude.
about it. Love it. Go for it.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
disgustingly fat, bro. You should really
Thanks so
like
much, man. What a
watch out. I
great
think you're
joke.
gonna be sprouting daisy soon. You should be
Sprouting
sprouting daisy
daisies.
soon.
You mean like
Yes.
dying? No, no. Leave your image up. You're such a looker. Bring it back up.
No, I didn't prepare to be on camera like you, dude.
Oh, that's right. Do you have to put your makeup on? Do you have to get your face on? Is that what you needed?
Is that
I didn't
what you
prepare to
just
be
wake
on
up? You just
camera.
wake up fat and disgusting? Is that it?
Yes, pretty much every day. Yep. And you? I
I
don't have
don't
to
believe
say,
that.
oh, I need to put my face on before I come on the camera like you.
Nah, I shave. Like what, dude? I
You
haven't
just
shaved.
said you
What's
can't be
wrong
on
with that?
camera because you didn't prepare to be on camera. What you need to do? Do you need to gussy up, get a little mustache wax for your little fucking dick tickler there?
Yeah, well, I was gonna shave. What's wrong with that?
Oh, nothing wrong with shaving. I assume your boyfriend likes you to keep that for certain occasions, right? Little New
My boyfriend.
Year's evening with
Let's
him?
talk about your wife.
What about her? Have you ever
Yeah,
seen her?
no, she's
Have you ever seen her?
yeah. I saw
Where?
her when you were having a live on what the fuck was happening. Oh, it was off after Andrew's event.
After Andrew's event
Yeah,
at DebateCon.
you were driving back.
I was driving back from DebateCon in the car,
Yeah.
and you saw my wife there.
Yes, I
So
don't
you're a
understand why
frequent.
this has
So
to be
excellent.
repeated.
You're a
Yes,
frequent watcher of my show. So you must be married.
I caught that live, dude. That
Sure.
what? I
You
mean,
must be married, right?
I have a kid. What?
Oh,
Yeah.
no, no. I said, are you married? And you said you had a kid. That doesn't sound married.
What's your point here?
Are you married?
Okay, your Christian standards don't mean anything
What's it
to
have
me.
to do
Okay,
with
so I have a kid.
Christianity? It just
No, dude.
sounds to me.
So if your question is I am married according to the law in Texas.
You're married
I'll go
according
ahead
to
and
what?
to the law in Texas because we've been living together. Okay.
Oh, so you're
What I'm
common law
saying
married.
is we
You're
didn't
common
go
law
through the
married.
church. We didn't go through the church.
Mm.
That's all I'm saying.
You didn't go through
We've
the
lived
church, so
together,
you're
and that's
common
it. I
law
mean,
married.
but regardless, this isn't about my
No, no,
my
no, 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 no.
personal.
It's about what I choose to want to make it about.
We
You're the
we can
person who
talk
called in
about
and made it
whatever you want. Go
personal.
ahead, Rob.
That's right. You called in and made it personal. You could have talked
Sure.
about the issues. You wanted to make it personal. So you're common law married. How long have you
What?
been
Yeah.
together with the same lady?
Yes.
How long have you
That's
been
right.
together with the same lady?
Yes. That's right.
That's not an answer. Now, where are you from? Which are you from? Born in the United States? Born in Texas?
I'm Texan. Yeah.
You were born in Texas?
Yeah.
How old are you?
Yo, why does this matter, dude?
I think it was relevant to
Let,
sort
let's
of.
let's get onto the substance. What were you
We
What
are
were you
talking
on
about the
about?
substance. We're talking about the substance of. It clearly seems like I'm dealing with someone with a diminished mental capacity. When I said, so how long have you been with
Dude,
the
you're
current
the one
woman?
that
And your
sounds
answer,
close-minded over here, spurting. You
normally
you
when
think
someone
you
asks
think
you a
you can just
question that
spurt
has to do
out
with
and
the
have
unit of
all
time,
your audience look
I
at
mean,
you being
again, I'll
emotional
give you a chance. I'll give you
and
a
being
chance
all
to speak.
passionate or whatever.
I will
But
give you a
that's
chance
all you
to. I
can
will
do.
give you
That's
a
all you can
chance.
do. That's all
You
your
will
fat ass can
absolutely have a
do.
chance to speak. You absolutely will. What I'm going to explain to you is why I think you have a diminished mental capacity. I asked you a question that was about time. And instead of giving a unit of time, when I said, how long have you been living with the same woman? You said, yes. That's not an answer. That signifies to me that you're either too much of a coward to answer the question or you have a diminished mental capacity. And you think when someone says, how long have you done X, that the answer is yes. Do you understand how yes isn't an answer to that question?
I didn't hear you wanted a number.
What
Okay,
did you think I
5 years.
want when
We've
I
been
said,
together
how
for
long
five
have
years.
you
We've
been
been
with
together
the
5 years.
same woman?
We've been together for 5 years. Okay, the only one with
You've
a
lived
mental
together for 5 years?
condition is the autist, the spurg over here, who thinks that he can get all emotional and get his audience all riled up with this BS about you thinking that you're more competent at being more versatile with different types of jobs when all you can do is take care of old people and talk. That's it. Your
Wait,
fat ass
wait, wait,
can't
wait,
do
wait, wait,
nothing
wait,
else.
wait.
Your
First
fat
off,
ass can't do anything else.
where did anything in me saying today say it's about me being more competent and versatile in jobs? Can you show me once of saying
Dude,
that?
you said I'm better than you, blah blah blah. Like you said all this shit like
About
some stuff about somehow you're saying that people say that the immigrants are saying they're better than Americans, and then you went on to say that no, that you yourself are better, which
no, no,
no,
no. I
all you
said
can do is talk bullshit.
my culture
All you
is
can do is
better.
lie
It's okay.
and
It's okay
and
to say that certain cultures are better
disingenuously
than. Do you disagree
present
with
things.
that? I don't recall saying I'm better because I have more versatile job skills than you. I don't recall saying that. I said that some cultures, it's okay to say we like our culture and it's better than other cultures. Do you disagree with that?
I think that cultures have to adapt to the environment that they're in. They're
It's not
different.
an answer.
I wouldn't.
It's not
That
an
is an
answer to
answer.
the
What the
question
fuck?
at all.
How do you not understand that?
Because my question was, are some cultures better than others? And your
And
response
I
is,
said they're
you should
different.
adapt to
I said they're
cultures.
different. I said cultures have to adapt to the
That's
environment that
so then
they
your
pertain
answer
to.
is no. There aren't some cultures that are better than others. And instead, all cultures should adapt to the environment they're in. Would that be a steel man of your position?
Look, okay, I'll bite the bullet on this. Yeah, some cultures are better than others. I
Thank
can
you.
say that there's cultures that unalive their kids, or that mutilate their genitals or whatever,
Like
and
Somalians.
I can say that they're not,
Like
in my eyes,
Somalians.
better.
Like
The
Somalians.
Somalians, I think that the place that they come from, not, I don't know if they partake in genital mutilation,
Sure
but
they do.
if they do, then yeah, like okay,
Okay, so
they're
then
less.
explain it. So then explain to me where I'm wrong saying that it's okay for the people of St. Cloud, Minnesota to say we like our culture and don't want to bring other cultures in, and some cultures are better than others? What's wrong with that
because
statement?
the coach, people who are leaving, they are assimilating. They're not bringing their genital mutilation culture over here. Have you heard of
Really?
any Somalians mutilating their children's genitals or whatever? Have you heard? Is there any news about that in the U.S.? The fact is that immigrants do assimilate.
First of all, let me ask you this. You don't even know if that's common practice in Somalia, as you've admitted, correct?
I did admit that, yeah.
Okay, so it seems that you're in here protesting and calling in and coming in with personal insults when you're admitting you don't even know the bare fucking minimum about the people from the culture that you seem to be protecting here. Secondly, if I'm able to provide you evidence
Look,
that Somalians have
nobody is
engaged,
getting
let me
rid of
finish.
American
So
culture.
let me
Nobody's
finish.
getting rid
So
of
let me
British
finish.
culture.
Secondly, if I'm able to provide you evidence that Somalians and other communities are coming in and bringing female genital mutilation to the United States, will you say, oh, then yes, you're right, Rob, that's terrible? Will you say that? Or will you just move on to something else?
No, I'll condemn it and I'll say that needs to stop. And
Okay.
I think people will force those people to stop that act.
You think they will?
I think
How? When you
people
have white knights like you that'll call in and say, how dare you say that some cultures are better than others?
I think people will condemn it, and I think people will force them to not do that.
Somalia has one of the highest rates of female genital mutilation in the world, with approximately 99% of women and girls aged 15 to 49 having undergone the procedure.
Dude, we said you were gonna cite something that happened in the U.S.
I'm getting there. You didn't know if it happened in Somalia. It's 99% of women in Somalia.
Okay, and are they bringing that into the
Well, let's
U.S.? I'm
continue.
telling you, British culture is not going anywhere. American culture is not going anywhere. People do assimilate.
In the Somalian community in Arizona showed that 78 to 98% of women have been female genital mutilated.
Repeat that.
78 to 98% of women in the Somalian community in Arizona have undergone female genital mutilation.
And that is through the are they forcing that onto the rest of the population? Like, you understand that you can have beliefs like Christians, let's say Christians or even Jews. They have their personal, biblical beliefs. You don't have to force that onto others.
So,
I know you and Andrew believe in
so
force
your argument
doctrine
is
and
so.
all this bullshit.
Can you explain to
No,
me?
you have to
Can you
understand that there's a
explain to me?
separation
Yes,
between
okay. I want
government
you to explain to
and
me.
church,
Okay, so
between state and
you're
church.
saying that these
You
young
don't have to
girls.
force
Okay,
your
no,
beliefs
please be quiet
onto
for
the
a
rest of
second,
the
so you can
population, Rob.
So just so we can clarify, as long as they're just genitalating or mutilating their own women's genitals, it's okay because they're not forcing it on to other communities. That's your argument here?
I mean, I'll do my best to try and convince them to condemn it and try and get them to stop, because I really think that that is
That's all good.
important.
Great. That sounds great. Good for you. Anyways, back to the point you just made. You said, yeah, but Rob, now that we find out that it's 78% to 98% of Somalians in Arizona, they're not forcing it on. They're not forcing it on other communities. So therefore, it's not that bad because they're not forcing it on, the general women in Arizona's
Well,
women.
by the numbers you mentioned, you can see that they're phasing it out. In Somalia, it's like 90% or something, and now it's 70. So them come
Wow.
to America is phasing out the bad,
What do you
the
think
bad
would happen if all of a sudden, like
aspects of their culture.
three generations from now, that there's enough Somalians in a particular area to vote to make this legal? You think they would?
No, because there's a separation of church and state. You cannot force others to adopt your personal biblical beliefs.
It's not a matter. Again, it's
Like,
not a
the
matter
Jews are
of
able to
you're
do that
looking at it. You're
very
looking at it
well. The Jews
backwards.
are
You're
not
looking
forcing
at it.
others
You're looking
to
at it
abide by their
backwards. You're looking at it
stupid book.
backwards. First up, there's two things to say here. One, if there's enough of a will, anything, even in the United States Constitution, could be overridden. That's why we have an amendment procedure. Secondly, it's not a matter of forcing on people. They could say that the process is legal. And therefore, we're not saying that you, Mr. Warren, has to mutilate the genitals of your woman, but I should be allowed to do it to mine. That's what I'm talking about. Do you think they should be allowed?
If it's being allowed in Arizona, like you said, then it's already legal, or it's not
I didn't say
illegal.
it's been. I
It's
didn't
not
say that
illegal.
it's being allowed. I said that 78% to 98% of the women in the Somalian Arizona community have undergone female genital mutilation.
Okay, so not in the U.S. is what you're saying. They
We
probably before they got here.
We don't know. So what's happened is, because the practice is illegal in the United States, much like other things in the Somalian community that's very isolated and balkanized, it seems that the process has gone underground. There's been several human rights organizations that have tried to shine light on the subject, but as you could imagine, these very insular communities aren't talking much. So my question to you is, do you think that if they had significant amount of people to have the voting block on their side, that right now they would vote to legalize this procedure?
I don't think they would be allowed to. No, I don't. I think the government would step in and say that this religious personal belief is not something that should be imposed on everybody. And even if it's made legal,
are you
it doesn't
not
mean
that smart?
it doesn't mean people have to partake in it.
That's right. It wouldn't mean that people have to partake. That's not the question. Should it legally be allowed?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Do you think they would vote to legalize it?
No, I think that they're phasing out. I think people do assimilate. I'm telling you, people do assimilate.
Okay, so just to be clear, your argument is almost universal in Somalia. 99% of women undergo it. So clearly, this is the cultural norm. This isn't some of them, a handful. This is 99%. You agree, right? The people that are coming over here, they're not coming over here from Somalia because they've passed some sort of test and they've waited in line. They're coming under refugee programs, right?
Sure.
Okay, so your argument is even though they have these beliefs in Somalia, they get here and magically they're like, you know what, now we're against it. But they're still for the hijab, they're still for all that stuff. But this one thing, even though you have no evidence, you're like, yeah, I think they're against it all of a sudden when they get here. Not because
the
it's
evidence
illegal.
is the numbers you mentioned.
Yes.
The fact that it's less than 90, whatever the fuck you said, 90 whatever percent you said in Somalia, and it's like 70 now. The evidence is that they're phasing out, they're assimilating to American
numbers in the
culture.
Arizona community were 78 to 98%. I noticed that you only take the low number. Fine, let's say that they take the low number. Do you think that the reason that number has shrunk to 78%, which is still over 3/4, do you think the reason that number shrank has more to do with, oh, now that we're in America, our attitudes have changed, even though we adapt the same cultural practices with all the other things of our religion? Or do you think it's because now it's illegal?
Is it illegal in the U.S.?
Yes.
Oh, so yes, you said it is illegal.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I think that it's a product of the environment. I think that they're adapting to the new environment, and yeah, they whether they like it or not, they're going to have to adapt to the fact that it's
Okay, so
illegal
then
here,
if they
and
if
they
they
will,
don't,
and they have.
they have. Okay, so explain to me how they have. Go ahead.
Because the numbers decreased. You said okay, 78 to what did you say, like
So
80 something percent?
No, you seem to say that they're assimilating, they're adapting. How? What happens is, this is traditionally how immigration works. If you have small numbers of immigrants from any particular community, what happens is they tend to assimilate more rapidly because they sort of have no choice. But if you bring in mass amounts of people from the same regions that have vastly different cultures, you know what happens? They ghettoize or balkanize. They just get insular in their own communities. They don't learn to speak English. They just keep doing the same shit that they were doing elsewhere. And now they have their own little private insular communities. So much so that fraud could run rife because no one's really talking to the outside community because they got their own little thing going on. Just like we see right now in places like Minnesota. In St. Cloud.
You mean like what happens with Chinese people, like Chinatown, and how it happened with the Irish and the Italians before? They all assimilated, Rob.
They eventually
You're just fear-mongering.
They eventually assimilated in many ways. However, what we're talking about is people that were importing from vastly different cultures than, say, the Germans or the Poles or even places like China and Japan. We're talking about people that have a vastly different culture that we're intentionally bringing in numbers that allow them to ghettoize and balkanize, and then we're feeding them assloads of money while 78% of them are on welfare. Why should the United States be obligated to bring in people that have vastly different culture that'll be a financial drain on the system? Should we be obligated to bring them in?
I mean, people will argue that it's because their region was destabilized by American intervention.
Okay, so explain to me how American interventionism, when did it start to destabilize Somalia?
I know that Minnesota has some kind of Somalian root. But
you watched my show this morning, so you read a little of what I read, right? That said that there was a civil war going on 25 years ago in Somalia, and that a lot of these charities that are connected towards dealing with there are based in St. Cloud and other places in Minnesota. That's what you did. So explain to me how U.S. interventionism affected that civil war in Somalia. Go ahead.
Well, the whole notion of America being the world police, the fact that America has, through U.S. or through U.S. aid or whatever, America has always had a post in these regions, and
so let me steal me your position.
Somalia and their history. Okay, I'm gonna say that I'm not well read on their history and how America destabilized the region.
You just know they did. You just know they did. You don't know how, but you just know America destabilized. Let me steal me in your position. It seems like you made two arguments there. The reason that you know that America destabilized Somalia is twofold. One, because America's the world police, and therefore, if a country becomes destabilized because America's the world police, therefore America let it happen because we're the world police, correct?
I just need to do some light research, and I could find you ways in which America destabilized the region. But yeah, okay. With what you
Why
said, yes, I agree. I
you
agree
made
with that.
claims. Okay, so just to be clear, you agree with the statement because America's the world police. If you have a nation like Somalia that is destabilized, that's America's fault because as the world police, they should have prevented it. You say
Not just
yes.
any country, not just any country that's destabilized around the world. You know, I'm sure the U.S. had some specific, like for example, with Venezuela. Trump knew that he impacted
Not interested in the
the
whataboutism.
stabilization of
That's fine.
Venezuela, and he allowed for
I'm not
Venezuelan
interested.
immigrants to come into the country.
I'm not interested in the whataboutism. I'm talking specifically. You
No,
seem to make a
I'm saying something similar.
you seem to make a universal claim. Your claim was as such: the United States is the world police, and
But I'm not
therefore,
saying
if
every
there's a
country.
country that's destabilized, therefore the United States must be at fault.
No, I'm
Reason
not
one is
saying
because
every country. I'm saying
okay.
that there's
So what is it
levels.
about Somalia? The U.S. is the world police. Somalia has a civil war. The U.S. is responsible. Can you explain to me why the U.S. being the world police is responsible specifically for Somalia?
Just
You
because a
just know it.
country becomes destabilized, let's say I don't know, some fucking country in like let's say, goddamn, like I don't
You're
know,
doing
Russia
good.
or
Keep
something,
going.
or
You're doing
let's say
good.
like fucking Guatemala or something. It's destabilized. It's not necessarily the U.S.'s fault. I'm saying that there's countries where the U.S. had more of a hand, like for example Venezuela,
Okay,
or
great.
other countries like Iraq,
Excellent. So
that
then,
the U.S. had more of a hand in,
great.
and I
This
think
brings up.
Somalia is more close to Venezuela than the other countries that,
You mean
like for example,
geographically?
Guatemala, that has not been touched by the U.S. in a long time.
You mean geographically, Somalia is closer to Venezuela, or do you mean the situation in their country?
The situation, as far as the impact the U.S. has had on the
Okay, so
country,
explain to me the impact that the U.S. has had in Somalia. Go ahead.
that's what I'm saying. I need to do some light research,
No, but
but
you just said
it's
it's
not it's
closer to
not
Venezuela.
the reason that there's many Somalians being let in, or not let in, they're being approved, that they're being vetted. They're not just approving anybody.
That's so true.
The
It's
reason
refugee.
that
It's almost
Somalia
impossible to vet these people.
is being approved as a refugee country is because the US had some impact,
Give me an
and I just need
example.
to do
What
some
did the
light
U.S. do?
research, dude. Let me just do some
Do
light
the
research and I'll call
so
back
wait
in.
no wait this is but you say this without having any clue whatsoever. You just know that Somalia is destabilized because of the United States. You don't know why. You just know that's the case.
I know that the US gives preference to, like I said, for example, Venezuela or Syria. Other countries like in the past, Iraq, Middle Eastern countries, that the U.S. gives preference for a reason. It's not just a blind reason that Somalians are being let in,
So
and
just to be
so
clear, so your
that is
argument would be, yeah, just to be clear, now your argument is because the United States has offered refugee status to Somalians, this is an admission by the United States that they caused the refugee crisis. Therefore, any country that the United States allows refugees in, that's an admission by the United States that th've caused the problem. That's your argument now?
no. At times, the U.S. is just trying to help. Okay, at times but
Okay.
like I said,
So then how do you know
the
that's not the case
Somalian
in
situation
Somalia?
is closer to the Venezuelan situation
Explain how.
than the
How
Syrian
do you know that?
situation. Let's say, for example,
How do you know that?
let me do it. Like I said, let me do some light research.
But
But
so then what you're saying is I don't know that. I'm just guessing.
dude, I really just need to do one quick Google search, and not AI, but
But I
this
don't give a
isn't.
shit if you do a search or not. You're making claims right now that you don't have the vaguest fucking clue. The truth is, you're making any excuse to say that the United States must bring in these people because it's somehow their fault. That's what you're doing. And the truth is, you don't have a fucking clue. You don't know. You're just making claims. I assume it's closer to Venezuela than Guatemala. How
No, I didn't say
so?
I
Well,
assume. I
I'll
said
do
I
some
know.
research and figure it out. I'll post hoc justify my claim. That's bullshit. Tell me how. Tell me what the United States did in your. I'm not saying you have to say, well, in 1973, he disposed this person and did this, that, or that. You don't even have the vaguest fucking clue. You don't know. You're just spouting the same NPC fucking nonsense that people that always want to bring in displaced communities from around the world say, well, somehow the United States is at fault.
Okay, no. Well, let's say it's not the U.S.'s fault. Let's say the U.S. is just being kind, and they just want to help Somalia and do the Syrian thing again. Okay,
Okay.
like what the fuck is wrong with that?
The question I asked you that led to this was, does the United States owe it? Do we have to let people in that are a drain on our society? And you're like, well, it's because we caused the problems in Somalia. So now you're saying, well, maybe we didn't, but what's wrong? Okay, then we get back to
Well,
on it. Should it be that we as a country have to bring in people that will be a drain on our system? Or
when
do we
we
have the
have
right to say we don't want those people?
we have a 4%, 4.5% unemployment number. So if we need people to fill jobs, then like the Haitians were helping revive cities and towns that were dying. If if we have immigrants with worker protections, which is a key component here, because if they're here illegally and they don't have worker protections, then yes, the wages will affect the American citizens' ability to have a living wage, and it'll negatively affect the wages. But if they have worker protections, it won't. It'll only help the
So
cities
wait,
and dying towns.
okay, so you said a lot there. So I think what you just said there is we should bring these people in and they should be paid, have all the protections that a U.S. citizen worker would have. So, for example, an illegal that picks fruit for $2 an hour, you would say, no, it shouldn't be that. That illegal should be allowed to pick fruit and given all the OSHA protections and minimum wage guarantees as an American, correct?
They should be on a short leash. They shouldn't be committing crimes, for example. Even if it's traffic violations, they should be taken more serious than
Sure,
if an
this
American
is
citizen were
irrelevant
to
to what
commit
I
that
just said,
crime.
but
No, all I'm
let's
saying is
get
that they should be on a short leash, but they should have the protections as far as being able to have
okay, and at what
an
point?
adequate wage
Okay,
paid.
so let's go through this step by step. Then, so one, if we get to a point where we say, actually, we don't need your labor anymore, now can we tell these people we don't want them because they're not beneficial?
I don't think we can just kick them out of the country, but if they start to become a drain, if they start to become a problem as far as there's not enough jobs anymore, and yeah, I think we should give preference to American citizens.
No, wait, wait, no, wait, wait, no, wait. There's two separate issues here. One, would you say if we say that there's not jobs for you anymore, that we no longer bring them in? We don't accept the refugees. Would you say that?
Yeah, I think we should stop. Yeah,
Okay, so,
if
and the premise of that, correct me if I'm wrong, is if it's not beneficial to the United States, we have the right to say, no, we don't want you.
I mean, there are situations where there's humanitarian crises, and we should try and help.
But by
If
definition,
possible. If it's going to be counterproductive, then obviously no.
by definition, when we accept refugees, it is a claimed humanitarian crisis. That's why it's a refugee program and not a worker visa. So is there
Right.
any
So
situation where you could think that you would say, you know what, we've brought in 10,000 refugees from Haiti, and it turns out that they overwhelmingly are a detriment to our country. Do we have the right to say, well, then we don't want to bring people in, even
yeah,
if we do
we
think
can
they're
stop.
refugees?
Yeah, we can stop. I think we are obligated to stop if it affects the
There you
rest of
go. So
the
then
population
you would
negatively.
say the premise here is if there are detrimental effects to the population of citizens already in this country, the people of this country have the right to say we don't want these people.
Yeah, but your social cohesion point is bullshit. That's
Not
all
true at
pure
all.
feelings. It's pure feelings, dude.
And that's
That's why when
first off.
RTP had that
First
debate
off,
with Andrew wanted to talk about my feelings, and
when
I don't
wait
know if
wait wait
I'm
wait when
gonna
who
be
had
able to
when
get along
wait wait wait
with
slow
these
down
immigrants. Like I'm not gonna feel comfortable. Blah blah blah.
slow
And
down. When who had the debate with Andrew?
RTP.
Okay, RTP has that's what. So you're an RTP fan now. It's making sense. Okay,
I mean,
so
dude,
RTP.
I watched you. I watch. I mean, I'll like tune in to see like what the right is thinking.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, I tune into a variety of channels.
Okay, so the social cohesion. We'll get to the social cohesion aspect here in a second, right? But you would say that if they say, you know what, we don't think economically these people are worth it, then we would have the right to say, okay, then we don't have to accept it.
Yeah, I mean, unless if it's counterproductive to the American population,
Okay.
yeah.
Then
But
why? So then why
not
should
because of
social?
feelings,
Why
not
should
because of
social?
feelings.
What? Okay, so who gets to determine? So you don't think social cohesion is something that should factor in whatsoever?
I think it's less of a factor than the economic
Fair enough. You might have a
benefits.
preference on how much of a factor you think it should play, but do Americans have the right to say we don't want to bring in certain large swaths of certain groups of people because we think it'll negatively affect social cohesion? Should they have the right to do that?
They can have the right to feel a certain way, but
No,
that's
no, no,
it.
that's not the point. My point is, are they allowed to say, we want to stop immigration for this particular area, for these particular groups of people, or maybe in totality, because we think it has negative repercussions on cultural or social issues? You said that should factor in, but factor in less than economic issues. Nonetheless, you're saying that we should have the right to factor that in.
If it's because the people coming in are legitimately committing crimes, and I know that there are some crimes that are committed, but the numbers show that obviously immigrants don't want to be kicked out, and they know they're on a short leash, so they're not going to be committing crimes. But if it comes to light that they're over here drastically committing crimes, then yeah, then there's a point there. But if it's purely based off of, oh, I'm not gonna feel comfortable, like, what if I don't get along, or what if we just have to be able to work together? We don't have to like each other. We just have to be able to work together.
No, that's not true. Again, the point is, right? The point that I'm trying to make here is there has to be a right for a country, any country, not just the United States, to say, look, we don't have to bring anyone in the world in and just say, as long as you can make an argument that it slightly benefits the economy, we should take people, even that massively, for example, let's say, should we be obligated? Let's say that I could say, you know what? We need 50 million workers here, so we should import 50 million people. But they're all going to be people that vehemently are against the First Amendment. And we think that they'll be able to get enough votes to push back against the First Amendment and redact the First Amendment. They'll pass an amendment to remove the First Amendment. Don't we as a people have the right to say, but wait a minute, that's something as Americans that we think are very important. Free speech laws or the Second Amendment, the right to self-defense. Shouldn't we have a right to say we're not obligated just because it might make GDP go up a point or two to bring in people that are vastly against our culture in that way? That's nonsense. It has nothing to do with liking them. It is a group of people in a particular country have the right to say, you know what? We like our culture and our citizens, and we're allowed to say we don't want to. If, for example, during the Cold War, a bunch of people said, we don't want a bunch of communists coming in. Why shouldn't they have that right? It doesn't matter if you're like, well, those communists might work hard. Maybe so. But we don't want people spreading that ideology. Or maybe a particular Muslim country says, you know what? We don't want a bunch of Jewish people in our country. Do you think they should have the right to say that?
Sure. I mean, I don't think the Constitution should be changed. I think it's been, a foundation that has helped us through the most difficult of times, and it's lasted for a reason. So if it's something that's so integral to American culture, like 2A or 1A, is something that incoming people want to change, then yeah, I think that if it seems that that's happening, then yeah, I think we should halt
Okay, well
the
now
input.
now we get to the point. So you've conceded. Yes, people have the right to say we don't want to import people that have vastly different cultures. Now, all we have to do
But
is
that's not happening, Rob.
who gets to decide, who gets to be the arbiter. The people who are living in the communities and say we see the culture massively changing in our city, or you that doesn't live there. Who gets to be the final arbiter of that?
The Obviously the people who've been here longer. I mean, obviously.
Oh,
But what
interesting.
I'm saying is that that's not happening. Who is?
Sure it is.
Show me an example of people trying to take away the First Amendment.
It doesn't matter if it's taking away the First Amendment. It was
It's
just
not
an example.
happening.
It doesn't matter if it was taking away the First Amendment. It was an example that was given. That people that have vastly different culture could be different religious cultures. For example, do we want to massively bring in people that say that women have to wear hijabs and walk with men if they're going to be walking in public spaces? I don't think so. I think
No,
that
that
fucking
shouldn't be an
sucks.
obligation. And I think that that's the
That's
key difference.
right. That's
It's
right.
not going to be an obligation. It's going to be the freedom to do so if you want to,
No,
but it's not
that's
going to
not
be
true.
obligated
What we
for
see
you to
over and over,
do it.
we could see with countries around the world. For example, when we see Muslim immigrants that come in, it turns out that the first like 2 to 5%, it actually usually works quite well. The problem is once you start to get to 20%, you see these Muslims mass balkanize in single voting blocks, and they start to get things in Sharia law impacted into these local countries' elections. That's what happens. They're
Rob, that is
cohesive.
not
They're all going to
happening,
vote
dude.
together. Yes, that's exactly the type of shit that would happen. We see it happen in countries around the world. We're going to see it happen. We see what's going on. The same arguments you're making here is what
What
led to grooming gangs
these
in places like the United Kingdom. People like you said, there's nothing wrong with these people. There's no cultural difference. Then they mass raped hundreds of thousands of white British girls and said, our religion says we're allowed. And the local politicians and police stood down because they said, we don't want to be seen as racist. We don't want people to think our culture is better than other cultures. So we're just going to be quiet and hope it goes away. Bullshit.
Rob,
We have the right to be proactive to prevent that sort of shit.
if anybody should be worried about kids being or girls getting raped or kids being taken advantage of, it's the people who commit the most pedophile crimes, which are white men.
Per capita?
Per capita, definitely, obviously, because white men are a larger population,
Right,
larger
that's
size
why
of
I
the
asked, do they
population.
commit the
But
most
per
per
capita,
capita?
let me. I think yeah. Actually,
Oh,
I don't
really? You
think.
really do?
No, yeah.
Okay. So can you show me that evidence?
I read it in. I mean, just Google it, but definitely an absolute number, right?
So a country that's 66% white people commit the majority of crimes.
Of PDF file crimes.
Okay.
But hang on, we're getting a little divert.
I know per capita is
We
tough for
can
some of you
go back to this.
lefties.
I have no problem going through this point here.
Uh-huh.
But besides the call to prayer that I know you're going to bring up, what other Sharia law is being implemented? And that's not even really that's the equivalent of church bells ringing to have people come to church. That
It's not.
besides
It's
the
not. For
call to
example, we can see
prayer,
in places
what
like New
other
York that
Sharia
calls,
law is
we see them
being
taking over
adopted
public.
into British or American society?
So first off, we could see, like in places like New York, you could already see Muslim people taking over public streets for their calls to prayer. You see them being announced against city-town ordinances of like at like 5 a.m. and things like that. But that's not even the point that I'm talking about. We're talking about it doesn't matter if they're going to have like it shouldn't be that we're like, well, we can import people that believe in Sharia law, but only up until 20%. So as long as it's just 18%, it's okay if we avoid the other 2%, because predictably what happens is as they continue to thrive and have more children than other people in this community, and we have the celebration of white people no longer going to be a majority, these sorts of people are going to grow in their percentage of population, which make these sort of cultural positions more likely to occur. And even if it never gets to the point where it would actually make these laws pass, we still have the right to say we don't want this shit, even in a cultural aspect. We have the right to say it. You have the right to say it.
The point I'm making is that nobody is going to allow Sharia law into the government. Not in the U.S. Not even Christians. Not even Christian theocracy. That's not going to happen. It shouldn't. And yeah, you're fear mongering with this
This is exactly the
this
argument that was
threat
said.
that
It
you're
was the
going to be
exact
just
same
have more kids. Just have more kids. Like
the exact same argument. The exact same argument was made about fear mongering in the UK with these grooming gangs, which led to hundreds of thousands of British girls being groomed. And everyone the whole time said, this is fear mongering. How dare you? This is racist. How dare you? These people's culture is just as good as yours. There's not no-go zones. We see this over and over. For example, Sweden used to be one of the safest countries in the world. Now the rape capital of Europe. Why? Well, because they mass imported the very people. And you're saying, oh, no, they didn't. The Swedish people didn't have the right. They didn't have the right to say, because that would be fear-mongering bullshit culture stuff to say, we don't want mass amounts of people from these other communities.
Look,
Meanwhile, we see
if
places like Charleroi, Pennsylvania.
They should be kicked out.
Go ahead. Oh, okay.
They should be kicked out.
Okay, then why don't we have the right to just say we don't want people that come from these communities where this sort of things are cultural values that we can predictably see, like people from Pakistan or people from Somalia or people from Haiti, where 99% of the women undergo female genital mutilation. Why don't we have the right to say, let's stop it, instead of, well, bring them over, and then once they molest someone here, then we can kick that person out. How about we just say, you know what, we're under no obligation to mass import people like that. Fuck that.
Why don't we just say that? How often is rape actually, without a shadow of a doubt, proven? Like, how often is it recorded? How often do you have footage of it? It's always usually on a testimony basis, right? So if everybody that's claimed to have gone raped, if every girl that has claimed to have gone raped in Britain is claiming this, now you believe all women, now you believe all these claims, now?
No, it's because they have documented, many of them, they have documented physical evidence They have documented testimony that they think is beyond credible. They have reports not just from the victims, but also from perpetrators, also from law enforcement, also from politicians, also from families of the perpetrators. Now, it's interesting to me, though, as a lefty, your argument as a left-winger is, I don't believe the hundreds of thousands
I'm
of
not a
Americans.
left winger, dude. Like I said,
Okay. So what?
I,
You're the same centrist that calls in every time. No one's ever.
I'm an independent.
You're an independent. Who'd you vote for in
I'm
the
a
last
radical
election?
centrist. I'm politically. Yeah, I know that's a meme, dude. That's a meme. I would say I'm more aligned with like PF Jung, you know. But yeah, I'm politically agnostic. I would say that.
So let's get
But
back Let's get back to the economic argument, right? So for the cultural argument, you've already lost the argument because you
no,
consider
wait,
there are times
hang
when
on.
cultural
So
people.
let me just clear up that yeah, if immigrants are committing crimes, which like I said, they commit crimes at less of a rate than native borns because they know that they're on a short leash.
It's
But
not true.
if
It's
immigrants
not true.
are raping, if they are caught committing these heinous crimes, yeah, kick them out like right away.
It's
I'm,
not
I'm
true. It's not a matter of just kicking them out. It's also a matter of not being obligated to accept people that have cultural values different than ours. And you've already conceded. For example, you
no,
said,
I
of course,
haven't.
I said, should a Muslim country be allowed to say, you know what, we don't want Jewish people here? You said, absolutely. Right? Isn't that what you said?
No, I did not say that. What?
I asked and you said yes.
If if a Muslim country doesn't want Jewish people there, that they should not be
obligated to bring in Jewish people.
You know, obviously the U.S. is different than the U.S. is unique, right? The U.S. is unique, dude. Like, what do you want me to say? Like,
what other countries are unique? United Kingdom, it's unique too.
The history of the U.S.
The
is
rest of the
different than the
European
history
countries, they're
of
unique.
Palestine, the history of the Middle East. There's obvious glaring differences.
So it's just the United. Is the United States the only?
Where it is
So I want you to explain
for various
to me.
reasons,
So
and one of the reasons.
What is it about the United States?
Diversity.
Can you explain to me what it is about the United States that uniquely means that we're obligated to accept anyone in the world regardless of their culture?
That's not what I've said, and I don't think anybody.
Okay, so then we are
that.
allowed to say we don't want people from certain cultures.
Obviously, we can deny people. We shouldn't just allow. We don't have open borders. We shouldn't have open borders. I'm not for open borders, dude. I don't know if that's the caricature position you're trying to argue against, but that's not my position.
If you're not for open borders, shouldn't we, as a people, be allowed to come together and pick and choose who and if we want any immigrants?
Yeah, but if half the country votes for somebody, like for example, with Biden and the previous administration, everybody on the right claims that Biden let people in unvetted or that we were invaded, right? It's not an invasion if half the country voted for someone. Like for example, if you and your if two parents have a disagreement and one parent allows their friends to stay in the house, is that an invasion? I mean, they're being allowed in. They're being approved.
These people,
it's not an invasion.
We as a people, you're right that there are shitbag open border people that I bet you voted for. By the way, I bet you voted for Biden and Kamala. I bet you did, right?
I voted for Biden.
Yes,
yeah.
Of course. And so we as a people have the right to say, fuck all that. We have the right to say we don't want you people here. That's exactly what I'm saying. Now,
the point I'm making is it's not an invasion if they're allowed in, if they're being vetted and it's not just an open border policy. You think that there's just no vetting? That's
right.
Insane.
The illegals that came in under Joe Biden, the like 10 million or so, how were they vetted? How about the ones that he brought in from Afghanistan? How were they vetted? Can you explain me the vetting process of Somalian refugees?
Where are all the terrorist attacks after Biden let in all these immigrants? Where are all these terrorist attacks in the U.S.
We just saw
happening?
2 National Guard members shot and killed in D.C.
Right. That was 2 weeks ago. That's it.
It's like about to go, but yeah.
Besides
it doesn't
that,
matter. It doesn't. Maybe we'll see more. Then what? How many will be acceptable for us to say, oh, geez, maybe we didn't vet those people? You're the person making the claim we vetted
millions them. Let in without vetting.
Right.
Why aren't we seeing these dangerous criminals committing these terroristic acts? We're not.
I don't think I've claimed that every 10 million people that came in illegally or around that number were all terrorists.
Not even at a rate that would suggest that there's no vetting going on.
Did they come illegally? Were they vetted?
Rob, from what I understand, there's like 36% of it's something like that. Like 36% is the number of people who are approved. The rest are turned away.
Okay, the illegals, how many were turned away? 36% of the illegals we
They're
left in,
not
and the rest we
illegals,
turned away.
bro.
Yes, they are illegals.
They're not illegals when they're being approved, allowed, and vetted, and have worker protections. They have work
That the
permits.
work
They
permits
have
is
work
different
permits.
than
I don't know what the
illegals.
fuck you're talking
The
about.
mass amount of people that came in, the majority of the ones that came in under Biden were not people on things like H-1Bs. Is that your claim? That when people talk about the around 10 million that came in under Biden, these were all work visas? That's your claim?
They're asylees. They're asylees. They
How
didn't
were
come
they
in
vetted?
specifically through H-1B, but they came in through an asylum process
How were they
and
vetted?
are legally here and allowed to work.
How were they vetted?
There's a process at the border. There
Explain. So
people.
when the millions came through that claimed that were asylums and never showed up to their hearings or shit like that, because the vast overwhelming amount of the millions that came in under Joe Biden,
96% return for their hearings.
but
96%.
most of the listen to me, most of the illegals that came through were never even given a hearing. So where was the vetting taking place? What's their names? Show me a list of their names. Surely, if the Biden administration vetted these tens of millions of people, there's a list of names. There's a list of their history, right? That has to exist if they were all vetted.
There should be.
But there's not, because most of these people came in and there's no paper trail of them whatsoever because they came in illegally. Now, some other factoids that you said. You claimed that per capita, whites were the most likely to be PDFs. This is from the U.S. Census population. Let's see, what this is from. The NIBR that takes statistics on these things. Now, granted, this is just a simple search, so I'll have to dig into the data more, but this confirms what I've read in the past. Here is the list. Number one group, American Indian and Alaska Natives. 14 per 100,000, 665, right? Of sex offenders. Number two, blacks, 161 per 100,000. Number three, Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander, 88. Number four, white, 46 per 100,000. Number five, Asian, 6 per 100,000. Now, this might shock you, but white is also going to include Hispanics because Hispanics are considered white under these sort of crime categories.
Yeah.
So you were saying that
so
whites are the most likely per capita?
You said the first one was Native Alaskan Indians,
like Inuits, Native Americans, etc.
They have the highest PDFR rate according to per capita statistics.
Correct. 200. Now this is all sex offense. It's hard to find specifically based on children, but when it comes to all sex offenses, overwhelmingly, the National Crime Database show the per capita Indians and Inuits are the highest rates by a long shot. Again, whites get lumped in with Hispanics, and they're still second to lowest with only Asians, which, hey, one of the arguments I make against the white supremacists all the time is most of the metrics we use to talk about whether it be IQ, work rate, average employment, least likely to be incarcerated, Asians outperform whites all the time. So do groups like Ashkenazi Jews and other groups, which is odd for a country that's white supremacist, that we have all these other races that on average are doing better than whites. Nonetheless, you get the point. So you're willing to admit that you were wrong about that data.
I understand the meaning behind per capita. Okay, I completely understand it. But I know that there is a case, or whenever the populations are so drastically, the numbers are so drastically different. Like, let's say you have a group of 10 people trying to compare per capita with a group of 10 people to a group of, let's say, hundreds of thousands. That's where per capita, when the numbers are too drastically different.
Okay, so what groups are you suggesting? What groups? So when you said, okay, so we can't compare whites to any other group, you claimed that they had the highest per capita, but because they're 66% or so of the population, it's unfair to compare them to any other group? That's your claim?
It depends.
Can we compare them to white, or can we compare them to blacks?
It depends on the, the absolute numbers, but it depends on I just know
To
that it's
what
not per
confirms your
capita is
political
not always
bias. You just hate
consistent.
white people.
Per
As
capita is
long as
not
it makes
always
white people look bad, then
the best.
you'll accept it. That's your argument. Just say
No,
it.
no, no, dude. No, like I know that per capita is very meaningful, but it's not always
Okay, it's
like
not always.
the
Can we
most
compare whites to
salient.
blacks? Or that it's per capita fair to compare whites to blacks? This isn't 10 blacks versus 300 million whites. Blacks make up roughly 15% of the population. So, can we use per capita when it comes to crime numbers between whites and blacks?
The crime also makes a difference, but you know, I need to look at the source again because
I'm not.
you said that
What's it? What
you
does the
briefly
source
looked it
matter?
up too. So
Yeah,
even by
yes,
your
that's
numbers,
true.
you
That's
say you're
true.
not completely confident, and
That's
I need to go
it
back
is
to my source
absolutely
as
true,
well.
and
Okay,
I'm
but
certainly okay. But the point is, despite the confidence in the data, you're making a claim assuming that the data would be true, and your claim is, well, but we have to be careful about using per capita because if you take a group of people that's like 100,000 and a group of people that's 10, the per capita numbers that's not really a big enough base to be able to make accurate predictions, right?
at
Anytime we're
that point,
looking at
absolute
let me
number
finish.
matters more.
Anytime, right? No, that's not true. Absolute
Yes, it
wouldn't matter
does.
more. That's not true at all.
It's more dangerous at that point.
That's absurd because if we say that 10 people from this population and all 10 of them are serial killers, right, based on however we want to slice it, but there was only 10 of them, and so therefore the fact that there was 11 serial killers out of this population of 300 million people, well, 11's more important than 10 in that context is nonsense. What you're
No,
trying
I'm
to say,
saying
is something that's true of statistics, that if you don't have a big enough sample size, it's hard to
yeah.
draw conclusions. That's true in general. But what I'm saying is that's irrelevant to this particular conversation because we're not talking about that. We're talking about 15% of the population versus 66% of the population. Those sample sizes are large enough to draw conclusions from per capita. There is no reason that absolute numbers would be more indicative of trying to understand sort of patterns than per capita in this sense. So while you're generally true that yes, if we have a sample size of like 1 or 2, that we should avoid that, but we have a sample size of millions of 15% of the population. So what's the relevance to a low sample size here? It wouldn't apply here. And your
It's the
answer to
same
that
as
is I have to look at the data more. Maybe the
no.
data
It's
will
the
come out the
same.
way.
It's the same as when it's at times the average is not as significant as the medium. There's instances where the medium of depending on the
What does that have
context,
to do with per
a
capita?
medium. I'm saying that that's how per capita is not as
So
significant
give me
as an
an
absolute
example.
number. That
Give me
it's
an
the same.
example because when mean, okay, so your argument is this. Well, sometimes median's different than mean. Sometimes we'd say
No,
median's
sometimes
more
it's more
important.
significant. The median
Sometimes
is more
median more
significant
significant, sometimes
than the
mean.
average.
Okay, let's say I accept that. Give me the example where because sometimes median's more important than mean, that we shouldn't look at per capita crime data between whites and blacks.
Like when it comes to income, the when it comes to income, it's sometimes not beneficial to look at the average. It's better to look at the individual statistic points and see what the median is as opposed to figuring out what the average is. Because one like somebody who has a vast amount of wealth will drastically affect the mean.
What does that have anything to do with crime data? Where we're not talking about averages, we're talking about the
That
total
okay,
amount of
here
crimes committed by a population. So your
maybe
argument could
one
be
white
maybe
person
one
commits
black guy committed
maybe
a
one
thousand
white
rapes.
person commits multiple PDF file crimes like Epstein, like Trump. Like that's how
Okay.
it can affect the
So
numbers.
just to be clear, when you were talking about white people being more likely to be PDFs, you'll fully admit that you're full of shit because we can't trust
No,
any of the
I'm
data
saying that
because it
there's
could be
more of
like
them,
means and
and that
medians, right?
I'm saying that in an absolute number sense that there's more, and they they commit multiple times that crime because they have more resources,
No,
because they
wait.
have
Someone.
more
Wait.
availability.
Wait. Someone just sent me. Okay, I'm gonna have to eat a little crow here. Someone just sent me a source. Actually, when it comes to child sex offenses per capita, it does seem like whites are the highest, slightly higher than blacks. So
Okay, but like I said, per capita isn't always the
So
best measure.
we should disregard this data then about whites. Uh,
I think that's bullshit. I think just making that up.
You think I'm
But
making? Well, you're.
I
Guess
think
what?
you're
You're
making that
very
up.
astute.
I
I
think
was.
so.
I
Like I
was
said,
making that up. I will guarantee, if the data would have went the other way, though, you would have absolutely been like, "See, per capita, white's more likely." When it
no,
doesn't go your way, you're like, "Well, we can't evaluate per capita. We should use absolute numbers." You're full of shit. We all see it. Now,
no, dude, no. What?
back to the economic data. We've gone through the point where you're like, oh, okay, we shouldn't have the right to kick people out culturally. Now with economic, okay, so if we could prove that 78% of the Somalian people are on some form of welfare in this country, if they're more of a net drain on this country than they are benefit, we could kick them out, right?
78% of Somalian immigrants are on welfare.
Correct, some form of welfare. Households, 78% of Somalian headed households. So we
Well,
could
I
kick
mean,
them out because they're not beneficial. They're taking welfare, correct?
dude, I know that welfare does help people get out of bad situations, and obviously, if somebody is coming from a war-torn area or a country that doesn't have, stability, and they're coming across the ocean to come here, they're gonna get here and not have anything. So
But that
obviously,
wasn't your
they're going to
argument.
be on some kind of assistance.
Your argument was we have 4.9 unemployment, and so we need these people to work. But if they're
Right.
actually more of a net drain, they're taking more out of the system than putting in, then why don't we have the right to say we don't know? Now you're back to, yeah, but we should have a big heart and accept them as refugees. So in other words, you're saying that we should be obligated to accept people even if they are an economic drain?
No, no. I said that if it's counterproductive, then we should halt the immigration
And
and
send them
try
back.
and revive our country with what we have.
Okay, so
But
then on to the
it's
point of
not
St.
a
Cloud.
gotcha to say that immigrants who are coming from across the ocean from war-torn areas are on government assistance while
No,
they
I
are
agree. No,
filling in the
here's
jobs
something.
that need to
Here
be
we
filled.
go. Thank you. That's actually
That's not a
something we
gotcha.
agree with. Yes, you're right. It's absolute bullshit when people on the left try to gaslight us. These people are coming over and they're immediately so productive to our economy. That's bullshit.
They're
Every one
filling
of us
jobs
would
we need
intuitively
filled on
understand if
in
you're
dying
taking a bunch of
cities
if you're
like the
taking a bunch
Haitians.
of people, if you're taking a bunch of people from war-torn countries that can't speak the language, that don't have high education levels, then no, they're not going to be massively beneficial to the economy. In fact, chances are they will be an immediate drain on the economy. Yes, I agree, which means I think that outweighs any obligation we have to accept people from places like Somalia. Furthermore, particularly when it's being put in communities of people that are working class people, they're like, we don't want to fucking deal with this. Why aren't they putting them in Martha's Vineyard? Why aren't they putting them in where all these politicians live? Same with the illegals. As soon as we send them to Martha's Vineyard, they're like, oh, fuck no. We can't handle 50 illegals here. Send them back to the poor blue collar working communities. Send them to the inner city to fight for jobs with low education blacks. Send them to rural areas to fight with low education whites. By the way, I'm
I
just
mean, I'm
taking a
not going to
guess.
say that.
Since you showed us your picture, is it fair to say you're from a Hispanic community?
I'm Texan, sure, yeah.
Well, not all Texans are Hispanic.
I mean, dude, what do you want me to say? I was born in Texas, or like, yeah. So my family is from Latin America.
Did you know that one of the groups of people that is vehemently against illegal immigration the most are Hispanic Americans that came here the right way?
Yeah, like my family's. So, but I mean,
Are
I
they against?
understand that.
Is your family against illegal immigrants?
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Have you
ob-
explained to them how we have to have a
we're
big
not
heart and
against
trust me, they're good?
asylees. We're not against asylum seeking. Okay, yeah, we're against people crossing the border, jumping into trailers to try and sneak in, or yeah, obviously. But we're not against helping people. We're not against asylees.
Okay, so everyone who
If
claims to
you're
be an
able to
asylee,
prove
everyone who
your
claims to be
case,
in it, we should leave everyone that claims to be asylee in?
if we have the resources, then yeah. I mean, if we have the ability, if it's counterproductive, no.
I would love to talk to your family. I don't know that they would necessarily agree with what you're spouting here because a lot
What
of these
wouldn't they agree
illegals
with,
are,
Rob?
quote unquote, they claim that they're asylees. And there's an awful lot of people in the Hispanic community like, we don't give a fuck. We're tired of them being put in our communities. We came here and did things the right way. We actually worked our ass off. And now these people just hop the fence and say, oh, trust us, we're fleeing something. The truth is they're not asylees. They're economic migrants, most of them.
Dude, the truth is that the immigration system is purposely inefficient so that
Correct.
people are for so that people have to be here illegally, so that because people cannot afford,
Who gives a fuck? It's our
because
right
of
to.
money or
Who gets
because
to
of the
determine?
time,
So what?
they
Who gives
can't
a fuck?
afford to stay in line.
So
And
what? Who gives
so
a fuck?
let me just explain that there's companies and businesses, on both sides of the aisle, left and right, who want illegal immigration so that they can take
Correct.
advantage of the entire, even American citizens, so that they can take advantage of
Yes.
the entire. So the immigration system needs reform, but they won't do it
Yes.
because it gives them profit, because
No, no,
it
no,
gives
no,
the
no, no, no.
capitalists.
Yes,
And
you're
I'm
right.
not a
Yeah, yeah,
socialist.
all of
I'm
that's
not a
true. All
communist.
of that's true.
But
It's just the
capitalists
ultimate
on
conclusion.
both
It's
sides
just the ultimate
want the
conclusion.
immigration system inefficient.
So no, no, it's not that they want it inefficient. It's that
They
they like
do.
this system. It's that they like this system. They do. Democrats like it because they could reliably import voters and have democratic displacement, which they want. A lot of Republicans like it because it's cheap labor, and so that's why you're absolutely right. The difference between me and you is you're like, well, these poor illegals had no choice. They had to because after all, we set up in an immigration system that they won't be able to come through the legal way. So fuck them. We set up a system that says that I can't afford a Ferrari. Does that mean I get to steal one and it's their fault for making the Ferrari unaffordable to me? No. We're under no obligation to
That's
have
a
an immigration system that says that
that
it has to
analogy
be
is such
affordable.
bullshit, dude.
Why is it bullshit? Explain to me.
Because
So,
a Ferrari is not fucking a Ferrari is materialistic. It's not like it's not the opportunity to have a better life. I mean, it is, but a car
okay, how
is
about a
not the
home?
same
I can't afford a home, so
as
I'm just going to steal this home. A
opportunity
home's very important, right?
in a career, for example.
I've changed the analogy. I can't afford a home. I think a home's very important to have stability and have a quality way of life. And so, therefore, because homes are unaffordable, I should be allowed to steal it, right?
No, dude, it's still not the same thing. It's still
Why?
materialistic. We're talking about a material thing versus like an experience. We're talking about,
An
you know,
experience. Explain
yeah,
that to me. Explain that to me.
like traveling. Like traveling is an experience. It's more.
So we have an obligation as a country to set an immigration system that people could afford because it's a human right to travel, because it's an experience. Is that what you're
No,
suggesting?
it's not a human right to travel. I mean, the point I'm making is that the opportunity to have a better life in terms of having a better job and a
Like
better
owning a
environment where
okay.
you're not being threatened with violence or with your life being taken away, any day. It's not the same as a car, or it's not the same as a house.
That's not true. In fact, housing
It,
would fit almost like that's about an apples to apples comparison you could get. The
I
stability
disagree.
from owning a home and the mobility that allows you and your family very much is less about materialism and more about, you might say, well, to own a mansion, sure, but I'm talking like a little starter home. You know how much benefit that would be? What that does to a culture to allow home ownership? It's very important for upward mobility and all sorts of downstream effects we'd see. For example, health effects. You tend to live longer if you own a home. It's more stability, right? All you have to do is look at the homeless population, right? So, like the idea, like you're making basically what you're saying is this. Listen, these people need to be here. It's an experience that they need, and therefore, it's the United States' fault for having an immigration system that doesn't allow them to easily come here. And so, therefore, we understand why they break the law and come here illegally. Bullshit. We're under no obligation to make it easy for anyone to come to this country. We absolutely have the right as citizens of this country to say we don't want anyone. Fuck you all. And the idea that you would say, well, you can't say that. They have a right to be here. And so therefore, they'll just break the law. And I sympathize with that bullshit. No, they don't have the right. Do I have
it's
the
a
right to
life
go to
and death.
Mexico and live there? How about
It's a life
Japan?
and death situation, and that's the difference between that and a car or something materialistic like a house, like you wanting a
It is
like a.
not. So I just want to be clear. Every single person that immigrates here, it's because they would have died had they not done so.
It's because their chances of dying are higher.
Okay, is your chance of dying higher if you don't own a home?
And in your analogy, it was getting a better home.
No, it
But
wasn't. I
if
said,
you're
in fact,
homeless,
my analogy was
if
specifically
you're
not that.
homeless, you do not have the right to steal a house, Rob.
Why not? Wouldn't my chance to
Obviously,
live be higher?
that is still not The
Why not?
comparison is
You
still
said that
flawed.
the
It's
reason
not
that
the analogy
you
doesn't
said
fit.
the reason it was okay for them to break our laws and come here is because it increases their chance to live longer. Same's true of owning a home. So why shouldn't I be allowed?
It's because a home. If you're homeless and you have other resources here in the
Yeah.
U.S., like you don't have to steal a home, but
So
these people,
therefore,
it's either a lot of them. It's either you know try and be here illegally or literally like there's no resources in these war-torn countries, these cartel-filled countries.
give me an example of a
There's
country
no,
you're
and
talking
I know you're
about.
gonna say, oh, fix your own country or whatever, but it's
Give me an example of a
at some
country
point
you're talking
it's
about.
too far gone.
Give me an example of a country you're talking about.
Colombia.
Okay, Colombia. So you're saying anyone from Colombia should have the right to immigrate here because their country's so war torn. And so it's a matter of life and death.
I think that if they try and sneak in illegally and skip the line, that it's more understandable.
What do you mean more understandable? So what? We can understand. Who gives a shit?
I mean,
I could say
want to
I
live.
could say the person that steals a house, it's more understandable if it's a poor person than a rich person. And what's that have to do with shit? Seems that you're making an argument that we morally are responsible for them coming illegally because we've set up a system that makes them hard for them to get here. But that it's our moral obligation because it's life and death for these people. You say Colombia. Let's take a look at
the country.
Let's take a look at the world map here. Okay, so now you'll see Colombia down here. That's right at the top of South America. See all these countries they have to pass through before they get to the United States? Plus, there's all these countries they could have went south to. Can you explain to me why it's necessary for life and death they be in the United States?
Because the groups that they're trying to flee from, the cartels, the gangs, or whatever, they have posts all throughout the South American and Central American countries. It's really, yeah, it's the U.S. that's the bastion of
do cartels operate
security.
in the United States?
What was that?
Do cartels operate in the United States?
With much less
Nonetheless,
freedom,
they do.
With much less power.
But we could say the same for the example. The cartels, different cartels and to different levels operate in a place like El Salvador or Costa Rica than they do Mexico or Colombia or Ecuador or Peru. All of those have different cartels operating at different levels. In fact, El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the world at this point. So why don't they immigrate there? That's super safe in El Salvador.
Because El Salvador is being ran by a dictator who anybody with any slight dissent is being put in a camp. And it's not necessarily it's
or
safe,
are you just spouting the
optically.
nonsense from are you spouting the nonsense from people like the New York Times that didn't give a shit when El Salvador was the murder capital of the world and their people were suffering immensely, but now that someone took radical action to protect their own people, now you call him a dictator?
No, because there's no due process really. Like it's
explain how much do you know about the legal system in El Salvador? Go ahead.
I know El Salvador doesn't really vet their crimes. They go a lot based off of suspicion and testimony and just word of mouth. So if enough people say something about you, you can get locked up. Or if there's any suspicion, I just know that people who are put in the camps there, not all of them are guilty. And
is the same true of the United States, Canada, Russia, Nicaragua? Can you name me a country?
Not to the same degree.
Okay, so give me the extent. What extent of people locked up in El Salvador are innocent?
I forgot who I was watching this. I don't know if it was Vice or something like that, but they are constantly putting people in jail who have not been proven to be the culprits of the crime. And
does the United States do that?
It's rampant. This happens.
Yeah, I don't give a shit what you're vague. I saw an article on Vice. By the way, how many articles do you think Vice did about the people of El Salvador being victims to fucking murderous cartels for years and years and years, making them the murder capital of the world? Would it surprise you to know that Vice probably didn't give a shit then? They didn't care. They didn't care about that. But now when a guy
I'm
comes
pretty
in,
sure they
I'll
were
fully
putting
concede. I'll
out
fully concede this.
documentaries then
Do
too.
I think there are a certain level of people that are probably falsely incarcerated in El Salvador? Sure, I think that occurs in
Much
every
more
country.
though.
Might it
Much
be
more.
more in El Salvador than other countries? Maybe. It
Yes.
may be. However, I will say this. You could understand it when you see that this place was literally the murder capital of the world, and this man in his tenure as president has taken it from the murder capital of the world to one of the safest countries in the world. And to have people sit back and go, wow, I don't like that.
I'm
You
just
see the
pointing out
problem?
why people would skip the country
The reason they're coming to the United
and try
States
and
is
come to
for
the US.
economic viability. That's why they're coming. Because they're not refugees. A refugee would be someone that fears their life in their country, and as soon as they're outside of that country, would settle down. These people intentionally skip multiple countries to come to the United States, or in Europe, they skip multiple countries to come to a place like the United Kingdom because they get more benefits, because their economic viability, as is proven by the Haitians, who are scamming to the tune of $9 billion and will probably find out more on all sorts of welfare systems. Why wouldn't you come to the United States? Fuck, I don't even blame them. If it's like, well, let's see, you can settle down in Mexico and work your fingers to the bone, and it'll be an honest living, and you'll have a chance to live. Or you can come to the United States and drive Ferraris and start a fake fucking daycare center and scam for millions of dollars. Plus, you'll be given welfare on top of it. Yeah, I guess I would choose the United States. Point being, we're under no obligation, and it's absolute bullshit. The argument's like, well, they're fleeing war-torn countries, so they have to come to the United States. It's absolute bullshit. Go elsewhere. Go to the United Kingdom. Fuck it. We are under no obligation.
I mean, the point I'm making is they'll skip El Salvador for that reason. And usually, if you're fleeing violence, it usually goes hand in hand with poverty. So the financial incentive is going to be a factor as well.
Of course.
And
so we
the
are under
U.S.
no
has obviously
obligation
more
to bring
resources
people
than
in.
El Salvador.
The United States is under no obligation to bring people in for their financial incentives. None whatsoever.
It's not purely financial.
We're under no obligation to bring them in for any reason, but if their part of their reason is financial and they are just as safe from the particular cartel or the particular government they're fleeing in Mexico or in Canada or in El Salvador or in Nicaragua or in Costa Rica as any of the other countries, then we under no, at that point, then the differentiation is economic.
Isn't Trump trying to put into the presidency a lady in Venezuela to help him with his efforts, I guess, and what people suspect will be to receive oil? Isn't that something that commonly happens not only in Venezuela? It happened in Nicaragua, Cuba, multiple other Latin American countries.
Is Maduro a dictator in Venezuela?
From what I understand, there's good reason to believe.
Okay, so then your argument is somehow, when talking about the problems of mass migration in the United States, somehow your argument comes down to, yeah, but Trump's trying to get rid of a dictator for someone that will be beneficial to the United States. Therefore,
people in Cuba love Fidel Castro, or no, I'm sorry, not Fidel Castro, not Cuba, but there are, like, for example, Russia. Okay, like there's a dictator and people love their dictator. So if there's some kind of stability there still, despite there being a dictator, and the U.S. comes in to destabilize the region, it's still.
Yeah, okay, I agree with you.
There's still some argument to be made there.
You tended to vote for interventionist, right? That's what Biden was. That's what Kamala Harris would be. You tended to vote for interventionists and then say, because the United States intervened one way or another, even if they intervened to depose a dictator, well, the dictator probably brought stability, and so therefore now we owe some sort of obligation. Which gets back to the first point. Let me finish. Which gets back to the first point that you made, which was a point about, well, the United States is the world police, and therefore, even though you don't know shit all about the United States involvement in Somalia, you just intuit that the United States is somehow, to some degree, responsible for all sorts of bad situations in Somalia. And here you justify the reason. Even if the United States does anything to promote its side, even if it's to depose a dictator, you'd say, yeah, but that dictator may have been a source of stability. And so therefore we're responsible for bringing in people. I say, even if we accept that, I voted against that interventionism my whole life. Not you. You voted for people that specifically did that. And one of the things I'm tired of hearing is people that support organizations like the CIA and the FBI, particularly if they're going after Trump, then saying, well, because of actions places like the FBI and the CIA have taken, we've destabilized countries and have to bring these people in. Which, by the way, is a goal that you wanted in the first place. How about we stop fucking with the rest of the world and stop allowing these people to come in? How about we do both?
I agree with that much. But so back to the Somalia thing, dude. I did not say that I said that it's likely, and that it's likely that Somalia is closer to what happened with Venezuela than what happened with Syria, as far as letting or as far as helping people in their time of need. Okay, if Somalia is being helped for purely humanitarian reasons, what the fuck is wrong with that?
I don't even think you understand what happened in Syria. You're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, you're like, this is how you've set this up. Venezuela is a situation where the United States is responsible because we're in there fucking with the leadership of the country, right? Unlike Syria, that's your claim, right?
Yeah, or was it
we
Yemen?
Were bombing Assad in Syria. We intentionally displaced Assad in Syria. So even your own analogy is poor. Syria is more like Venezuela than you're claiming.
So what country was it? Was it Yemen or
Yemen? The United States backed the Saudis in bombing Yemen. In fact, under Barack Obama, we bombed them significantly.
The dichotomy I'm trying to present here is that there's humanitarian reasons that we're helping immigrants, or that there's more direct reasons because we intervene into something in their country. That's the dichotomy I'm trying to present here. That there's purely humanitarian reasons, and that there's reasons because we intervene.
It sounds to me like you're spouting bullshit. I think you've been unsuccessful. I think you've been all over the place. You've been all over the place. You don't know the specific details of these countries. Not that I'm claiming to know much more than you, but I'm not claiming to. In certain aspects, I am, like Syria.
Let me put it this way. There's countries that we help because something terrible happened in their country, like a natural disaster or something like that. And there's countries that we help because we intervene, like in Venezuela. That's the dichotomy I'm trying to present. And so, if the Somalians are being helped for either reason, what
the question wasn't the question. For example,
and I understand if it's counterproductive, then yes.
Let me explain to you why the question's irrelevant. Let's say that you really give a shit about an earthquake that hits Haiti, right? And even whatever you think about the history of Haiti, this is a real fucking shitty earthquake. And forget about the destabilization of the French and all that shit, right? And you yourself say, man, this fucking blows. I'm going to work overtime for the next month and send every extra dime I have to Haiti, right? You follow me so far?
Sure, yeah.
And I say, okay, I don't have a problem with that. Should I be forced to send my money to Haiti?
No. I mean, with the dismantling of USAID, I'm not completely against that.
So let's go a step further. So when you say, what's wrong with the United States wanting to help these countries? Nothing. Any individual has the right to want to help anyone they want, and you're free to send your dollars to do so. That's different than forcing through taxation and force to take people's money away that are American citizens to give it away on their behalf. That's different. In other words, what's wrong with it is we are under no obligation. Just like I'm under no obligation to pay for the Haitian peoples whose country was devastated by an earthquake. By the way, just like they're under no obligation to pay if the United States is hit by an earthquake. There's no obligation. You could feel free to do it out of the goodness of your heart. Fine, no problem. But you're saying what's wrong with it? It has nothing to do with what's wrong with wanting to help people. It's that we are under no obligation to do so. And if significant people in this country, like people in St. Cloud, Minnesota, are like, what the fuck is happening? You are taking our community and inundating it with these Somalian people that are balkanizing. And our schools now are filled with people that don't speak English. And our community's radically changing. And they're using up all of these resources. And now we find out that there's this endemic fraud. And you're like, well, they don't have the right to bitch because we're helping people. And shouldn't we help? You're forcing these people. And coincidentally, you ignore that they're not going to rich neighborhoods where people would have the resources to help these people. They ain't moving into Martha's Vineyard. They ain't moving into Aspen. They ain't moving into where the politicians live. They're moving into inner cities. They're coming to places like Haitians are coming to places like Charleroi, Pennsylvania. Population 4,000 that was forced to take 2,000 Haitians. Now 1/3 of their community are people that have nothing to do with their culture. If they would have taken 20 or 30 Haitians, then yes, those Haitians likely would have been forced to assimilate more. But when you bring in 1/3 of the population of this town in Haitians, what do you think the chances are that they're incentivized to assimilate? Not very high. And that's what you're seeing. People in these communities saying, what the fuck is happening? And meanwhile, you've already lost the debate because every argument that you make, we can see was exactly made in places like the United Kingdom, and they're fucked now. Because people listened to people like you and said, oh, it's bigoted, it's racist. You don't have the right to say that there's cultural differences, this, that, and the other. And now the people get poorer and poorer, and the people that work their ass off are told, you know what, you no longer have money for housing for you. You got to put up these immigrants. You got to do this and that. In Canada, they're talking about taking away people's property to give it to immigrants. That's what happens when you tell a group of people they don't have the right to determine who gets to come into their country or not. I fundamentally disagree. And then if we get to the financial situations, right, which was your initial argument, well, we have the right to do it because, or we should do it because it benefits the country financially. I say, fuck that. Why aren't we mass importing people from countries where people would have an ability to have more high-tech jobs? And to have better jobs that fit more. Instead of people that barely work like from Somalia or Haiti, why aren't we bringing in people from Germany or Italy and offering them good deals that we could clearly see? And all you have to do is look all throughout. This has been done over and over. You could look all through Europe. You could look at all these developed countries, and they do these studies that say the average person, immigrant from this country, how much do they benefit society by the end of their life? And like when you're talking about immigrants from European countries, it's like it benefits society like 400,000, 500,000 over their lifetime. And when you're taking people from countries in Africa and the Middle East, it's like they drain 120,000 per lifetime. They drain 80,000 per lifetime. Why don't we have the right to say, you know what? No, we don't want that.
It's
not just for economic reasons,
Rob.
but also culturally.
It's different to have people come in. It's a give and take. If jobs need to be filled, if there's dying cities, dying towns, and there's a job surplus, which we had before Trump came into office, if all these things are happening,
we did not have a job
surplus. And we have immigrants who need help, and they can also fill jobs and help stimulate the economy. It's different than us sending our taxpayer money to another country through USAID. Those are two different things.
So I want you to prove your argument is that unemployment was higher under Biden, or there's more unemployment under Biden than Trump.
4.2 under Biden, and now I think it's at 4.5, and I think it's closer to 5 now.
Okay, what does unemployment measure?
I mean, it was the opposite. I mean, when Biden was in office, we had job surplus, and we had a job. We needed people to fill jobs. And
no, wait a minute. Was the unemployment numbers higher or lower under Biden?
During Biden, it was
the end of the Biden administration. Unemployment higher or lower?
It was lower.
Okay, so then we needed less people working under Biden, or we needed to import more people.
We needed, whenever Biden was in office, yeah, because Trump has been cutting jobs, government jobs. Trump has been firing the jobs report person because we're losing jobs, and so we had more jobs available while Biden was in office. And so we needed immigrants to come into.
It is not true. It is not that we met some. Now, here, let me drop some truth on you. One, unemployment numbers are terrible to use for reasons I'll get to in a moment. Secondly, what we saw under the Biden administration was most of the jobs being created were jobs that we lost because we locked down under COVID, which is laughable to consider those jobs. Third, when you look at those jobs, the vast bulk of the jobs created were one of two categories and many times overlapping. Government jobs, which are not efficient jobs. This is basically jobs that aren't being productive because it's just taking our tax dollars to fund someone doing something. These aren't private market jobs where you're creating wealth. And secondly, they were jobs to foreign-born peoples. That means the domestic population of the United States was actually doing much worse. Not just with jobs, but actually when we look at real wage growth, which is that the value of your income lowered even because inflation outpaced your wage growth, which means that it was negative under the totality of the Biden presidency. efficiency. Instead of looking at unemployment, a better number to look is labor force participation. Did you know that unemployment only measures people that are actively seeking jobs and can't get them?
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
remember
what that would mean, so if
reading
let's
that.
say I'm unemployed because I'm just a piece of shit that's only capable of taking care of old people, as you said when you came into here, right? Let's say that I'm unemployed because that's the only job I'm qualified for. If I'm actively searching for a job, I show up on the unemployment numbers, right?
Right.
But if I say, you know what, I give up, just give me welfare, now I'm no longer showing up on the unemployment numbers, correct?
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
So would it surprise you to know that actually, given the most recent data we have, it's very close labor force participation rate. It's about the same. From the end of November, it looks like about 62.5% of active working age adults that are working, and that's about the same number that it was under the Biden administration. Difference is way more American citizens are working now because almost all the job growth we see are one, private sector, and second, to people that were born in the United States. So someone like you that was born in the United States, you're much more likely to have gotten a job if you didn't have one under the Biden administration, whereas someone who wasn't born in the United States was much more likely to get a job, and it was probably more likely to be in the government sector than the private sector under the Biden administration. So the idea that we needed to import these people the data seems to suggest that wasn't true at all. In fact, what happened was we said, see you later, we don't need to import these people, and then we created a bunch of jobs that, surprise, surprise, Americans wanted, and they went back to work. The problem is we're told that the whole left-wing messaging so fucked up on this. We're told that we have to have this robust welfare system that pays people to basically able-bodied adults to sit on their ass. And then we say, look, no one's willing to do the job. So we have to import people from foreign countries. Just like we say, and this was an argument you made earlier, well, have abortions. Go out and just fuck whoever you want. Don't worry about getting married and starting a family. And then we say, oh, but we don't have enough kids. Now we need to import people from the third world. It's because these aren't accident. These are policies that are designed to denigrate the citizens of this country, white, black, or whatever. I don't give a fuck. My group that I focus on the most is rural people, right? But I would be a liar if I told you that because of the animosity that so many people have towards white people, that I don't have an affinity for that. The same would be true of Christians and in general American citizens, regardless of their skin color. I care more about a fucking black person struggling to find a job in Detroit than some Somalian. So when we tell that black person, fuck it, just take the government dole, take welfare, and we're going to import someone from Somalia and give them a bunch of credits to start a fucking daycare, I find that outrageous. Why didn't we do that for the actual person that was a U.S. citizen living in Detroit? And we've ran your experiment. We created all the jobs for foreigners, and all it did was to lead to the United States working people getting less and less purchasing power. Now, under the Trump administration, we see real wage growth up. We see job creation less in the public sector. In fact, one of the reasons that unemployment's so high is because we're firing a bunch of worthless bureaucrats at the government level. We don't need them. We don't need millions of people working for the government. Just like at your local university, you don't need a bunch of people that are administrators. You need professors. You need janitors. You need cooks. You don't need fucking the seventh person working in the administration office. That's how the Biden administration created jobs. Gave cheap jobs to foreign people and government jobs. So I can fundamentally disagree.
With when you talk about Trump getting rid of, for example, in the big beautiful bill, right? That he got rid of. He's taking people off of welfare, right? Now that would increase the labor participation rate. So that's
the secondary
the
effect
reason
would
behind
be
that.
yes. Either if you, for example, I don't like yes. One of the things would happen, like let's say I get paid to stay at home. I'm 41. I'm able-bodied. So if I just said, you know what, I don't want to work, and there's some government program that I could get money. If you take that program away, it doesn't force me to go to work. But the second order of consequences, I'm like, well, fuck, I need money. I guess I'll get a job. Because it turns out that a lot of people, and sort of human nature is, a lot of people, if they don't have to work, they won't. They'll say, okay, then I'm not going to do anything. I'll sit around and play video games. I'll get drunk. I'll smoke weed all day. That's what happens. When you say, hey, man, there's nothing wrong with you. You're fucking 35 years old. Okay, these systems exist as a temporary safety net. It's not a fucking way of life. Get out there and work, young man. Right? Well, guess what happens when you stop giving them the free shit? They say, I better go work. But instead we say, we're giving that guy free shit and he doesn't want to work. We better bring in this Haitian. We better bring in this Somalian. And then it turns out it's like, oh, fuck, they're not really working either. Would be cruel at this point to not provide for them. And then we're really left holding the bag. So what happens? We're in $38 trillion in fucking debt. 30 years ago, we were the greatest superpower the world's ever seen. The fucking economic prosperities of the middle class and working class blue collar people in this country through the fucking roof. And we pissed it away in 30 years.
I mean, largely due to Trump, no? Because Trump increased the debt more than anyone. Look, the way I understand it, Bill Clinton, he balanced the budget. Then Bush came in, did the whole Iraq thing, fucked everything up. And then Obama inherited a bad economy, and he did his best. He got it on track. And then Trump came in and ruined it again.
No, that's not.
Sort of
That's
so
let me educate you first. Enlightened centrist, right? That seems not to be an enlightened centrist. Seems that you're a tried and true Democrat based on the narrative you're spinning here. Well, it is true that the Clinton while it is true that the Clinton administration definitely did have a surplus, the problem is many of his free trade policies were responsible for offshoring labor and manufacturing from the United States to these places around the world. Turns out that just because we had a year or two of surplus or near no deficit, that we had negative consequences that came in the future. Many of the policies that we saw, particularly with foreign policy, you say Iraq under George Bush, make no mistake, this was voted on by Democrats, included Hillary Clinton. And there's no reason to suspect Bill Clinton would have done anything different, particularly because Bill Clinton himself was an interventionist, right? In fact, we saw even before, when did Clinton come in? 92. When was the first Iraq war? It may have been when Bill Clinton was president. I'd have to double check that, but nonetheless, so there's no reason to suspect it would have been any different. Obama administration, we see the boondoggle that created. Not only did he cause so many problems socially here in the country with all the woke bullshit that started under him and sort of the race hatred that we saw that was, everything was about evil white people, et cetera, et cetera. We also see that many of his signature economic policies ended up being an unmitigated disaster. See Obamacare. Now we're told that even though we were told it was going to be so affordable and great, not only has things gotten more expensive, now we're told that because they fed us a line of shit and this was terrible policy, we need to perpetually spend billions upon billions more in subsidies just so people could continue to pay their increasing premiums. That's how bad of a policy that was. Trump administration wasn't perfect. He certainly spent more than he should have, continuing a trend. But the only reason that it's super inflated is because the last year under COVID, which is absolutely bullshit and Trump should be blamed for. But let's not pretend that the Democrats weren't trying to spend even more and have even more lockdowns. Then that policy continues under Joe Biden, which is a fucking disaster. We see the disastrous economy under Joe Biden. The economy was doing very well for 2.5 years under Donald Trump, and it seems so far to be doing pretty good. Now, the truth is, I'll fully admit to you that it's sort of hollow, right? Because if this AI bubble bursts, then we're all fucked. And it won't matter the policies that Trump does. And part of it is certainly that we should blame Trump, and we certainly should fucking blame Republicans. Truth is, there isn't a fiscal conservative among them. Maybe Rand Paul, maybe Thomas Massie. That's it. So yes, you're absolutely right that we should blame Republicans for big budgets, but they spend less than Democrats. It's either we spend an insane, ridiculous amount or just an insane amount. Still bullshit no matter how you slice it. And it sucks, but at least wages are going up under both Trump administrations, and they went down, real wage growth that is, under the Biden administration. So, no, I'm sorry. And when we see, that's just, once again, talking about averages, mean, median. When it comes to U.S. citizens, they're doing far better, because much of the gains that we saw that even under Biden's terrible numbers were there to bolster it a little, were going to foreign-born people. So, yeah, there's certainly criticism to make of Trump, but the idea that when I'm like, over the past 30 years, the U.S. went from the world superpower in the biggest way that we've probably ever seen, right? At least when it comes to culture, economics, and military. And you're like, yeah, all because of Trump. So Trump in 5 years undid all of this excellent progress? No chance. The offshoring of the U.S. labor and manufacturing started well before Trump.
It seems like most of the time when there's a Democrat in office, there's an increase in jobs. There's the economy seems to be, the debt seems to be getting better. There's a more stable economy, and the times that there's a Republican in office, there's these crazy stuff that happens. With Iraq and mismanaging COVID. In what way did Trump mismanage? In which way did Trump mismanage COVID? Explain. I agree. He did. You explain how. Because Trump, he belittled the situation instead of taking it with the seriousness that every other country took it with we had countries that had more dense populations with less area to work with who managed COVID better, as opposed to the United States that has all this land
So
to
what should
work
have
with
Trump have done?
and dense,
What
less
should have
dense
Trump
population.
done?
What should have Trump done? I mean,
Yes.
he should have taken COVID with the seriousness that it merited.
Okay, so Trump should have said, "Oh my God, this is really serious," and then the problem would have been solved.
No, I mean,
Instead, Dr. Fauci, who has no reason to stick up for Trump, said, actually, Trump, with what he was saying publicly, was in line with what we were telling him to say privately, because what they were trying to do was not scare the shit out of people. And it turns out that scaring the shit out of people was actually the exact wrong thing to do. You see, the mismanagement of COVID wasn't that Trump didn't take it seriously. The mismanagement was that he took it too seriously, in effect, because he embraced sort of the
wasn't he saying
lockdown.
that this is going to blow
Let me
over?
finish. Let me finish. Because he embraced sort of some of the lockdown mentality that we saw. For example, we heavily criticized Ron DeSantis when Ron decided to open Florida back up. The reason that we saw such a catastrophe when it comes to economics wasn't because of COVID, it was because of the reaction to COVID, because we intentionally shut down the world economy. Then, predictably, once people started struggling and supply chains started collapsing, what did they do? They said, print money, spend, baby, spend. We got to send PPP loans. We got to send stimmy checks, right? That led to mass amounts of inflation and mass amounts of government spending. If Trump would have taken it more seriously, as you're advocating for, what that would have meant was more lockdowns and more stimulus and more spending, which you just criticized and said, well, Trump spent a lot. Yes, particularly in that last year. I agree with you. The spending was egregious. I agree with you. Trump should have had better leadership and said, if you're young and healthy, keep going to work, keep doing this stuff. Your freedoms are important. But we need to protect the vulnerable, those that are immunocompromised, the old. And that is on Trump. He was the leader of the country and he didn't do that. But make no mistake about it, what you wanted him to do was the opposite, to lock down the working population even better. And that's what the Democrats wanted. You can't have your cake and eat it too and say, well, Trump mismanaged. That's why he had to spend so much. Okay, what should he have done? Taken it more serious and locked us down more and spent more. Right, which you just said's the problem, the spending.
I mean, there's situations where there's reason to spend, and a worldwide pandemic seems to be a pretty good reason to spend.
So what's your criticism of Trump for spending then?
It's the places, the distribution, the direction in which the money went. It mainly went to the top 1%. The first COVID stimulus, it was, from what I understand, the greatest transfer of wealth.
Who crafted that stimulus?
What was that?
Who crafted that bill?
I mean, it was both sides.
It was Congress, right? And then Trump just signed it.
Yeah.
Who was in charge in Congress, Republicans or Democrats?
I mean, if you're trying to say that there wasn't a coordinated effort to transfer the wealth conveniently to those in power.
No, there really wasn't. Like, it certainly, well, yes, and certainly that happened, as was coordinated by both houses of Congress and both parties. True. But it wasn't as if you're saying, right? Yes, we intentionally created a system that through twofold led to the rich getting richer. One was we locked down sort of a bunch of places like privately owned, individual owned small businesses. In fact, some things said that 50% of small businesses that closed during COVID will never reopen. So while my local hardware that was owned by an old man who's been there for generations, it closed, I could go to Home Depot. Now, how did that make sense? It didn't. And this was done primarily in Democratic regions, but also in Republicans. And Trump definitely could have done more to stop this, and he didn't. So I agree with blaming Republicans and Trump to that degree. What I'm saying is the false dichotomy that they somehow, they're to blame and Democrats aren't, when Democrats wanted to go further, and their criticism of Trump is he didn't go further, is nonsensical. Yeah, so in one way, yes, when you give a bunch of people money and say, now listen, you can't shop at the local hardware store, but you can go to Walmart, of course, Walmart's stock goes up. Walmart gets more money. Yep. And certainly the way that these bills were written justified a bunch of wealthy places that were able to get access to money that was laughable. For example, the PPP loans. Publicly, rich people bragged about taking these loans. It was a joke. I criticized this the entire time. I said, if it's going to be, look, we're all suffering and so everyone needs $1,000 check, fine, the bill should be one page. Every American of the age 18 or older gets $1,000 stimulus check. Bam, end of bill. Or every American who under this fiscal year made under $100,000 gets $1,000 check. Bam. Instead, it was like this massive 1,400-page bill with all of these fucking loopholes and bullshit. And yes, both Republicans and Democrats deserve criticism for it. But certainly things didn't get better under Biden. Per the same section of time when Biden was in office, more people died of COVID than under Trump. And that's despite the fact that Biden's big fucking plan was vaccines, something that was created under Trump's administration, when the Biden campaign said would be impossible. And they questioned whether or not you should even take it because Trump was going to be rushing it. So Biden was given all the tools that he would end up using to fight COVID and did worse than Trump.
The spending is not really the problem that I have with how Trump managed COVID. It's really the messaging. The messaging when everything first kicked off, belittling COVID was not probably the best move, even though he was trying to, from what I understand, trying to diminish or trying to
it's a very weak. You understand that it's weak. This is a sign of weakness.
I'm saying that.
Okay, let's do it this way.
We should have handled it how many other countries around the world did as well.
What do
they
you think
with the seriousness that it requires?
What do you think the best defense we had against COVID ended up being?
Probably knowledge on the virus, or I don't know.
Knowledge of the virus in general.
I mean, just like a better understanding of the implications.
Well, that's not what most people in your position say. What do you think most people in your position say? You know what
Probably
it was that turned the corner?
Masks or distance, I don't know.
Wasn't mask or distance. What do they say?
I mean, I'm guessing that's what you're trying to get me to say.
No, that's not it. What is it the Democrats say? This is the thing. And these fucking Trump supporters won't do it. And that's the problem. They're the reason the virus is spreading. What was it?
I don't know. I don't know where you're getting at. Ignorance?
Vaccines? You don't remember hearing that?
Oh, true. Okay. Yeah, sure. Vaccines. Yeah.
You think the vaccines were very helpful?
I think no, because every year you would need a new vaccine. So I think ultimately, I think the virus molds or it evolves.
So the vaccines weren't helpful.
Yeah, I mean, no. I think that when it comes to the congestion that hospitals had, I think that it was worth trying to help,
okay,
to help
an attempt is one thing, but you're saying ultimately vaccines had no effect.
I mean, they help the symptoms. They help people not have as serious symptoms.
Okay, so you think they were good?
Not. I mean, I thought it was worth
here's what
trying.
I'm confused about. You're like,
try.
if Trump would have taken things seriously, it would have been better. I'm like, okay, what? So let's say Trump was like, holy shit, guys, this is really serious. What do you think would have happened that was different then? Explain it to me.
I think people would not have been out, ignorantly trying, or ignorantly just, going to parties or I think
that
people would have been more
illegal.
careful.
That was illegal in many places anyways, right? And I think that the people that were willing to break the local mandates to do that shit would have done so even if Trump told them not to. In fact, Trump told everyone to take the vaccine, and predominantly it was his supporters that didn't, right?
Right, yeah. Yeah,
okay,
I mean, after the vaccine and Trump gave that messaging, Republicans died at a higher rate than Democrats.
Why?
Because they didn't want to take the vaccine, because Trump told them not to take the vaccine.
So then the vaccine saved lives.
I mean, the numbers seem to indicate that.
Okay,
yeah.
So Trump told them not to take the vaccine.
Yeah, he did.
Show me that quote.
Wait, no. He didn't say not to take. He said that they shouldn't be forced to.
Okay, so just to be clear, right? One, you said that the vaccine wasn't effective. The Biden administration tried to force us. Now you're changing and you're saying, so did you support Biden's vaccine mandate?
I didn't think that people should be forced to take the vaccine.
Okay, so then what's your problem with Trump? Biden wanted to force them. Trump didn't. Trump suggested everyone take it. Biden didn't. Biden and Kamala were the two that cast shade on the vaccine until they got elected. Then once they were elected, they were like, oh, when we were saying all that shit about not trusting Trump's vaccine, now we think you should take it. In fact, not only should you should be forced to. So explain to me how that was a better situation. The only person that ever cast shade between the Biden administration or between Biden and his team and Trump and his team on the vaccine was Biden. In fact, one of the things that Trump supporters are still pissed at him to this day is that he still touts Operation Warp Speed. His own supporters pissed at him for that. He's the biggest vaccine salesman there is.
I mean, probably time was a factor that allowed people to feel more confident in the vaccine after, you know, Trump's initial rollout, because it was done rather quickly. But yeah, I mean, after a certain amount of time, there was more trust.
So just to be clear, Trump doing it quickly was risky, but it saved lives. So therefore, Biden was justified in saying it's too fast, it should be risky. But coincidentally, the timing was as such that as soon as Biden won the election, all of a sudden that was enough time for Biden to realize it wasn't risky and force people to take the vaccine, which you yourself said initially wasn't that helpful.
Works. That's how time works, Rob. Yeah.
No, that's not. That seems to be a pretty big coincidence.
I just said that, and yeah, I mean the time. Yeah, I mean, obviously, time affects how confident you are. After seeing the results, with given time, you feel more confident.
Tell me the results when Biden started to tout the vaccine that he had seen. Go ahead. When was it? What were the results he was looking at?
You mean after the mandate?
It was before the mandate.
So Biden, once he was trying to force people to take it, I think it's worth.
You couldn't even decide
yourself.
Having
a higher level of confidence after more time has passed and you see the results of the vaccine that you can not force, but you can implement a mandate. But I mean, like I said, I'm not completely on board with forcing every citizen. You know, if you're in the military, then yes, you know, you signed up for it, and if the government wants you to take the vaccine, they're forcing you, then yeah, I mean, that just makes sense. Military personnel have a higher standard.
So I just want to be clear. When did the first data come out to suggest that the vaccine was good? Because a lot of people were. When were people?
Because Kamala and Biden switched their tune on the vaccine. That
your claim is this: that it seems like a coincidence, but this is how it went. Before the election, Biden's team questioned the vaccine and whether he should take it. After the election, they saw the evidence that it was worthwhile. I said, that seems mighty coincidental. You're like, yeah, but that's how it worked. So I said, where's the evidence that they were looking at? That's all I'm asking you. When did we first have evidence from we had a large population of people that took the vaccine? We said, oh, this is working very well. Like, when was the CDC's first study on this?
To be honest, I couldn't give you a date, okay?
Do you have a guess?
I'm guessing 20. I mean, it would probably have to be about 2020, 2021. Obviously, when Trump left office and Biden came in. But I mean, 2021.
2021. So what we would need to see is a substantial amount of people to take the vaccine and then gauge how effective it was, correct?
Yeah. That's basically what I'm alluding to.
Okay, well, Biden in September was quoted as questioning the vaccine, and then in December, after he won the election, he took it himself and said there was nothing to worry about. So how many studies were done by December 2020 where Biden had a change of heart?
And December 2020 is when Biden took the vaccine.
Correct. And the exact date, I believe, if this is correct, was... let's see. Kamala Harris said in October 7th, 2020, if Donald Trump tells us we should take it, I'm not taking it. In September 5th through 7th, Biden stated he would take a vaccine only if we know all that went into it and emphasized the need for transparency. I trust vaccine and scientists, but I don't trust Donald Trump. This reflected concerns that political pressure might compromise safety or rush approval. And this was the argument. Trump was continually saying, trust me, by the end of the year, we're going to have these vaccines rolling out, et cetera, et cetera. And the Democrat narrative was like, no way, it's too fast, not going to happen. Then on December 21st, 2020, Biden received his first Pfizer dose publicly and endorsed the vaccine, urging Americans, there's nothing to worry about. When the vaccine is available, I urge you to take it.
Right after the election.
Right. So what data was he looking at that all of a sudden he was like, oh shit, I questioned this in September. My running mate questioned it in October. But now in December, we have enough evidence to see that it's good. If it wasn't the change of heart because now he was elected and saw political expediency and saying, okay, now you should take it, then what was it?
I'm assuming that they have more. Once people have, the presidency, they have access to more information and
But he
more
wasn't
behind
the
the scenes.
president. He didn't get sworn in until January 20th. Do you have any evidence
I'm sure
that he was being
the
briefed by
process
Dr.
begins
Fauci?
right after the election, though. But
Your
I mean,
faith
okay,
in this,
so
your faith in,
look,
I
Rob,
mean,
if
the whole
you're trying to
thing's
say that there wasn't some like, I if shady political moves were going on, then I condemn it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not always like, even though you said that I voted Democrat, previous elections, I just recently was able to vote these past couple elections, and Biden was the first person I voted for, but it was mainly like most people do, voting off of the lesser of two evils,
okay.
according
Well,
to.
nonetheless, all we're doing is taking specific things that you've said and showing your massive amounts of contradictions. Criticize Trump's spending during the
I'm
pandemic,
saying
and then
that
it turns
if
out that you wanted him to
shady
do. Let me finish.
political
You
moves were going
criticize.
on,
It started with you criticizing
that's
Trump's
fucked up.
spending during the pandemic, and then what happened was we got you to admit that you wanted policies that would have led to Trump spending more. You criticized the way that spending occurred. Then you were forced to admit that it was actually written by Democrats in Congress. Right? And Trump just signed the bill, right? Then you criticized Trump not taking it seriously. And I asked you, what mechanism did you think was one of the best to fight? First, you said the vaccine wasn't effective. Then, once you saw utility in it, you said, never mind, the vaccine was effective. And when I said, okay, given that, the only group of people that cast shade on the vaccine was the Biden administration. So why don't you blame them for putting in people's head that this could be dangerous? And you're like, well, because I just believed that they later got better data, and so therefore it was right to be critical of it initially, and then right to not be critical of it right at the exact same time after they got elected to do so. It seems laughable.
Like
it
I
seems
said,
contradictory.
More information became available to the Biden administration. That's what follows, right? That's what my reasoning tells me. But if like I said, it's messed up. It's really messed up if Kamala and Biden were playing politics with COVID.
Not
Okay,
only were
that's
they, but
and
so
I'm
was
not I'm
so
not
was
completely
Pfizer. So
condemning
the
it, dude.
clinical trials that Pfizer used were actually done before the election, but they didn't release the results of them until after the election, which seems highly dubious and seems like the reason for it was that they wanted to put their thumb on the scale of the election. Otherwise, they would just release the trials when they were done, particularly if they saw an urgency in people getting this vaccine as quick as possible. Instead, they waited until right after the election, even though the results were done. Now, all of this is to say, I want to get back then to one final thing. You called in very much with the chip on your shoulder, didn't you?
Dude,
Call me Rob Beast and this, and that, and the other, right? Call in with
look,
that, saying how dumb
look,
I was.
I was kind of fired. I was, your spill before I called in your Spurg session. Okay, look, I'm a chill, and I do apologize for that. I was also fired up
You called my
because you were
wife
saying,
fat. You think I should
look,
accept
dude,
that apology?
no, I completely understand if you don't accept it. I completely understand if you don't accept it.
My
But
wife's
I
amazing, by the
was
way,
like,
and beautiful.
yeah,
I
I
don't
was
give a fuck what
watching.
you think of her. But here's what I
I,
want to say on
I was
that
watching
point, and I
before
promise I'll give
I
you.
called in, and I
So
was
when you
fired
talk,
up too. Okay.
when you talked about me and my jobs, let me tell you some of the jobs I've done in my life, right? I've
Sure.
been pretty much fully employed to the best of my ability since probably the age of 12. Initially, at 12, I was a paper boy. I did that for about a year to 2 years. Then, when I was 15, even though I think legally in the state I'm in, you have to be 16 to get a job, I got work papers. You were able to get papers, and I worked at a Christmas tree farm. Now, a lot of the people I worked with were actually Puerto Rican, and I trimmed trees, the sides of them, either with shears or machetes, and then we had things called long handles that we did the top, or we dug. We had this machine that would dig out the trees and then drag them. It's hard work. It sucked. Most of the kids that worked there with me only lasted a day or two. I did that job for 3 summers. I also then went to work at Burger King and worked while I was through high school and partially through college at Burger King. I also went and worked at Goodwill, worked at this job at Goodwill, and among that time I worked at this real estate place. Now at the real estate place, I did a lot of like data entry, but I also did a lot of like handyman jobs. Like they needed a fence put up, they needed someone to paint the fence. From there, the woman that owned that owned a hobby farm, and I went to work at her hobby farm. So this would be doing things like, using simple machinery to move big rocks, digging ditches that they were longer going to put a river in, and things like that. So I had about 2 or 3 jobs simultaneously while I was going to college. Went to one of the cheapest schools in Pennsylvania while doing it. While I was there, I ended up leaving Burger King, obviously, and I left the real estate job, and I ended up becoming the assistant debate coach at the university. So I did that for quite some time, and then simultaneously, not simultaneously, right around the time that job went, I did work for the real estate people and the farm people some during then, but after that, when the state budget in Pennsylvania in 2008 didn't pass, I picked up a paper immediately and took the first job that I saw, which was working with people with disabilities. I sort of fell in love with that job because what I saw was a community of people that not many people gave a shit about. Now, I did that job for next to nothing wages. In fact, I think when I started that job, I made like $10 an hour. And then eventually when I left the first company, I was making, I think, $11.50 an hour being a supervisor there. I then left that company and promptly went to work for another company where I was at that location for 14 years. When I left that location, I was making about $21 an hour and averaging about 80 hours a week, 80 to 85 hours a week. Now, I'm not claiming that this is backbreaking labor. It was sometimes emotionally or psychologically draining dealing with someone with autism, but I've certainly done physical labor jobs in the past, such as the one at the Christmas tree place, one at the farm, etc. And so the idea that somehow I don't have a versatility in jobs that I'm capable of, I wonder, what's your job history?
No, look, times have changed, Rob. Okay, how long ago was that, by the way? How old are you? Can I ask you how old
I'm
you are?
41, so I worked for probably roughly 16 years with the people with disabilities. The last time I worked, the Christmas tree farm, I would have stopped working when I was like 17, 18. The farm probably when I was like 19, 20. So 21 years ago, man, what's the relevance?
Okay.
What are the jobs you've done?
I've worked I first started at a call center. That was my first job ever at a call
No,
center.
that doesn't sound like a job that's too manly.
This was when I was like 18, 19 or something like that. Or
Okay,
like,
cool. I've been
whatever.
working for 5 years by that point, but go ahead. Your first job was at 18.
No, like before that. So my family has a remodeling business, right? And we do a lot of roofing. Actually, roofing is where we started, and we
Okay.
work through insurance. We have our own company, and
You're a roofer.
now we have a
Got it.
granite company. Now we're in granite, but we work through insurance. We get overhead and profit.
So you work
We
for your
work.
father's roofing company, and now you work for your father's granite company.
No, well, the granite company is mine. The granite company is like, again, we work through insurance. The granite company is something that it's fresh. It's brand new. We're barely starting it up. But the roofing is mainly what I've adopted, or I'm taking it
So
over
let me
pretty
get
much.
this straight. Your first job was a call center. Then you went to work as a roofer for your dad's
Well,
company,
my
and you've
job, no,
saved enough money to now you've started your own granite business.
I started working when I was 15, 16, just supervising jobs, just
Supervising.
yeah, like a lot of the
That doesn't
times.
sound very manly.
I mean, I delivered materials. A lot of times there were missing materials, and there was a lot of issues between the salesman. Um, because we started in subcontracting at the time, so it was subcontracting first, and then we made our own company when I was about
So just
18,
to be
something like that.
clear, you're
But
18 years old, you started a call center, but now you're like, actually scratch that. When I was 15, 16, I was a supervisor at my dad's roofing company.
when I
At
was
15 or
15,
16.
16, 17, it was mainly just to have money in my pocket, and then I went to college, and then that's where I started that call center job. And
So you were a supervisor at 15 at your dad's roofing company.
the way it works, Rob, is that there's people, like for example, the homeowners. We worked in rich areas, and there was a language barrier, right, between a lot of times the labor and
Wait a minute,
the
why? I
homeowners.
thought that there was assimilation. You had people working for you that didn't know the language?
That's when we first started off. That's
Were they
that's kind of
legal?
how it went. That's just how.
Were they legal?
Yeah, yeah. Everybody, like, even though they were asylees. We
Oh, so they were not on work
they
visas. You
are
were hiring
legal.
people.
They were
You were
asylees,
hiring
dude. What do you
you were
mean?
hiring asylees.
Yeah.
How long have they been in the country?
It varied. but a lot of honestly, at first it was mainly just cousins and family,
That didn't speak
just
the language. Your
helping
cousins
each
and
other
family
out.
don't speak the language.
It took some time, but yeah, people do assimilate, Rob. I don't know why you keep harping on this point that people don't assimilate. American
Well,
culture
what
is
I'm
not
at,
going anywhere.
I'm going through.
British culture is not going
You
anywhere.
brought up my work
People
and work
that
history and made it
people look.
personal. All I'm doing is returning the favor. Now, the question I have is, seeing as how the bulk of the conversation we had to do with assimilation. Now you seem to be waffling a little about the type of people you
No,
hired. Now you're saying it was
I'm telling.
family,
So
but they
when we
didn't speak
first
English.
started,
How long was? Let
obviously
me. I'm just asking a question. How long was your family here that you worked with that didn't speak English?
we when we first started our business, and we had family that was already here,
And that's
and
mostly who you hired, the family that was here.
yeah, well,
Did they speak English? They were already here.
so they had their own employees. I don't know where they got their employees from, but they sort of showed us the ropes. And at the time, my dad was he was a roofer, right? And then we started our own company with
So
with
let
the
me see if I
time.
got the. Tell me if I got the time frame. Your dad's a roofer and he works for your family. At this same time, you started working there when you were 15 as a supervisor, not for your dad's company, but your cousin's family or company. Fair?
Once when I was 15, 16, we already had our company, but my dad got into the business through other family members.
Okay, so when you're 15, 16, your dad has this company. You
Yeah.
said he mostly hired your family, correct? That had already been here.
We borrowed employees from our other family that already had established businesses.
So did you? So there weren't any people from your family that had already been here. You were all working with employees of your cousin's company or your uncle's company or something like that.
The family that showed us the ropes, they had employees. They had groups of roofers that already were familiar with how things worked, and they would let us borrow those groups.
So you were required to be a translator.
I was basically there supervising jobs at 15, 16. I
Oh,
was there just basically if yeah, I mean the people that our family let us borrow the groups. Like I said, some of them, yeah, some of them did not have they weren't fluent in English, although they could understand and communicate, and they understood
I'll
money.
bet not
That's
all of them were
basically
legal.
the American language, money.
I'll bet not
So
all of them were legal.
I don't know what their status was, but I know that they were asylum seekers, or that
Okay.
they came
All
here.
right. So then it could be
So
that
then,
you were supervising illegal immigrants who couldn't speak the language.
no, I mean, from what we under, or they were legal. I'm telling you, they're asylees. They were
You
asylees,
just
or
said you didn't know
that's
what their status
this is
was.
going off of what our family told us who they were. So that's basically how we
Okay.
started
So
getting our
nonetheless,
our foot
regardless,
into
you
the
now
door
believe that their
with
immigration
roofing
status,
projects,
they were legitimate asylees that were legally here. Okay. So you did that until you're 18. Then you go
so
to college. Then you
yeah,
started a call center.
right. I
Okay.
didn't start a
Then
call center. I worked at a call center just to have a
you
job
started
while I
at
was
a
in
call
college.
center. Right. While you're in college. Fair enough. Great. And then after you're just ending college now and you've started a granite business, any jobs in between that?
I mean, I worked in I mean, like, warehouse jobs during the summer. I had, yeah, I mean, just multiple. I worked at like an amusement park place, like just like another bullshit job during the summer.
Sure. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that I worked at a county fair sometimes in the summer. It's fair enough.
Yeah, it
Nonetheless,
was a
it
baseball.
seems that you called in sort of impugning like my job and my work history. And it doesn't sound like yours is any more manly or impressive than mine. In fact, it seems much less so, if I could be completely honest. That's
Because
what
we
it seems
trim
like.
trees,
Well,
and
not
because
just
you,
that. It seems that like most of your opportunities were either like sort of desk jobs or that you got through opportunities with your father, being a glorified supervisor and translator.
I mean, I worked as a salesman for a water company, Primo Water.
That doesn't sound very
But it was
manly.
more of a sales associate. But
You
yeah, I
seem
mean,
to imply that the fact that I worked with disabled people was like unglorified or unmanly. It doesn't. I was expecting you to be like, yeah, man, I was fucking digging ditches. I'm a welder. But you're like,
That
well,
is,
I worked as a
dude.
glorified
You think
supervisor for my
roofing,
father, and I took calls.
dude? I wasn't always supervising on the ground. Like I was on roofs. I was on two-story roofs. I even did the I did everything, dude. Like it wasn't like my I wasn't specifically supposed to do that, but whenever we needed to finish a job, I mean, I got up there and did everything possible to finish the job that day.
Okay.
And I mean, like, I don't want to get into a pissing contest about how
But that's
manly our
what you
jobs were, but
did.
dude,
I didn't do
no,
it to you.
dude, like, I've been in roofing and remodeling my entire life. Whenever I was in college in the summer, that's when I would do those call center jobs, that the Primo Water sales associate job, and little more lax jobs like working at an amusement park. But I mean, uh, listen, I hope that we can at least agree with the point that I mentioned, that we're all being taken advantage of. The entire labor force, American citizens and non-American citizens, are being taken advantage of because of how the immigration system is kept inefficient.
That's
Because
I do agree with
CEOs
you that,
on
but the
both sides
problem
of the
is
aisle are
I
taking
don't
advantage of the
care.
entire
Here,
labor
I have a
force.
solution. I have a solution. Stop bringing these immigrants in. There. Now they're not being taken advantage of anymore.
If they are given, like, asylees, they're given worker protections. They're given, they can they're supposed to be given a wage that's
We're under no obligation to accept these
appropriate.
asylees. We shouldn't.
But what I'm saying is that, yes, illegals who get in through the river or whatever, or who through coyotes, or who sneak in. Yeah, like, obviously, like, uh I'm not going to be okay with that. Okay, so, but
Let me ask you. Let me ask you.
if
Let
people
me
are
ask
given
you
worker
another
protections,
question.
then we are not
You
all taken
see?
advantage of anymore.
Do you know what the concept of brain drain is? Do you know what that is? It's fine if you don't. Like, I'm not
It's
trying to gut you.
I've heard the term before. It's like, here, start explaining it, and then it'll
Brain drain would be
ring a
like
bell.
we take from the Western world people that would be amongst the top percentage of brilliant people in other countries. So, for example, we'll take the best scientists from a place like Somalia. And then Somalia never has the benefit of having that good scientist or good doctor there because
Okay,
they've left for the Western world.
so we're taking the best from countries who could have fixed their own countries, is
Correct.
what you're saying.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do you now
I mean,
when you
I don't
when
agree with that,
you now when
because
you implicated the United States as involving itself and being responsible for destabilization in other countries, do you think allowing mass influx of people that would be working age populations in these countries also has that effect of destabilization?
I think that those people would have otherwise passed away, or would not have had. They would have had a higher chance, a higher likelihood of being unalive, right? Had they not been given the opportunity to come to the United States.
Well, maybe now it depends. Like a lot higher is doing a lot of work there. I'm not so sure. A lot of these places, I
Depending on the
fully
country.
admit that their standard of living and probably their life expectancy certainly would be lower in a place like Somalia, probably than a place like the United States. But the problem is, how will Somalia ever benefit if anybody who has any talent in their country just flees to the West? How will we ever expect Somalia to get any better?
I mean, it goes back to what I said earlier. There's some countries who are too far gone, who, if one of those gifted people were to stay longer, they might not have made it out alive. Like, every day could be life or death. Like I said, depending on the country.
Okay, so Somalia is one of those countries?
I mean, mainly Latin American countries is what I'm alluding to, but
But we're
Somalia, I'm sure, has its own
okay.
problems,
We'll
and
say
yeah.
for the sake of argument, Somalia is one of those countries. And what would make Somalia or these Latin American countries this way? What is it about those places? Is it the environment? What is it?
I would say the history of the environment. Yeah.
The like the weather, the environment,
I mean, like, the tensions between different groups of people in the area,
the
and
people. So we
yeah,
should.
like the environment as well, obviously. Yeah, like
So
the
just to be clear, it
sure, like,
seems that what you're suggesting is these countries are unsalvageable because the people there have feuded so much. So therefore, we should bring the people here because they've made their country
I've made the
unsalvageable.
point, Rob, that it's only okay when it's productive, when it starts being counterproductive to our country. And I'm not talking about social cohesion, and I'm not talking about these feelings. Like I said, we need to be able to work together. We don't have to like each other. We don't have to like each other. But the if it's economically counterproductive, then yeah, I mean,
Okay,
and you're probably gonna say,
78% of
oh, bring in slave
Somalians are on
labor,
some.
bring in
78% of
no, like
Somalians are on some form of welfare. See you later.
say that last thing again.
78% of Somalian households are on some form of welfare. Goodbye.
Dude,
If you're doing
we've
so
already gone through
poorly
this.
that you
I
need
told you
government
that it makes
assistance,
sense for people to come overseas and need some assistance when they're coming from a war,
but
from
these
a
numbers.
poverty
Okay,
filled area.
so then let's say if you've been from Somalia in the United States for more than 5 years and you're still on welfare, can we deport you now? Because clearly you've had enough time to assimilate, you've had enough time to ply a trade. So if you're still on welfare, you're clearly a neck drain.
I think yeah, I think there should be a shorter leash, and there should be. I think there's an argument that can be made that after a certain amount of time, you should be able to get off of welfare. On a case by case basis, right? There are some exceptions. But
Now I'm
on
going to try
average,
to
yeah,
find
you
this
should be able
study.
to, after 5 years, get off of welfare if you're an immigrant.
I'm going to try to find this study that I'm
Especially if you're an
referencing
immigrant.
here. And granted, different studies could say different things, but I do believe that Somalians that were here more than 10 years, it suggested that 78%, that's where that number, I believe it's 81% of Somalian immigrant households use one welfare program, at least one welfare program. If you've been here for more than 10 years, suggests 78% are on some form of welfare. 78% of Somalian households that have been here for over 10 years are on some form of welfare. Now, isn't that enough to start to say, geez, this is a significant enough data to say, wow, seems to be a problem with people coming from this community. This isn't just, okay, they literally come with rags on them and 2 weeks later we're like, what, you still don't have a job? We're talking 10 years later. Now
Rob,
what's the excuse?
What percentage of, let's say, let's say that the top 5% or whatever, they receive government assistance too. So would you, like, in one way or another, you're right, like, what I'm saying is, what constitutes government assistance? Like, it could be pretty much anything. Like, if one time out of the year you're assisted by the government in I don't know, in some way, whether
But
it's through
that's different. When we're talking welfare, the programs specifically that they're talking about are things like food
what
stamps,
is it specifically?
housing assistance. These are the types of programs that they're talking about. Medicaid. That's different than saying, well, ExxonMobil, the CEO, gets some sort of subsidy to produce oil. Now, by the way, I'm not a fan of those subsidies. And I think that our system is written largely by politicians that are corrupt, that have these bigger and bigger governments that makes the system more and more Byzantine, which means that the people at the top are able to find loopholes. One of the reasons that I'm for smaller government, so that there's less of an ability for government to pick winners and losers in that choice. Nonetheless, irrelevant to this particular conversation, you acknowledge that if they're on welfare, that's bad, and we would be allowed to deport them, but you give an excuse because they've been here a short amount of time. If 78%, let me say, if the exact same number, if we could take a community over the exact same time and say Spain, and immigrants we brought from Spain after 10 years, only 7% of them are on welfare. Why should we choose immigrants from Somalia over Spain if we really need them for economic prosperity?
I mean, I think there's an argument there. Yeah.
It's almost like these people in these communities, you see, it's easy for someone like you, and hell, even someone like me that's not in these communities, to say, well, let's have a big heart and blah, blah, blah. It's not my kid that's going to school with them. It's not my community that's being inundated. But it is my $9 billion, or at least collectively all of ours in tax dollars. And it's clear that we're being told that we somehow owe, this is something that we just have to accept. And it's making a massive cultural change in this country. And by the way, this has been the truth. It's going back to the Hart-Celler Act. The truth is, this country didn't want demographic replacement. They didn't. And even the Hart-Celler Act that was sold to people, even Democrats at the time, they were told, trust us, dude, this isn't going to massively change the demographics of this country. And it's been a lie. Like, if you, I can pull up the charts. You look at, like, what do you think the most important cities in the United States are? Give me two.
New York, Los
That's
Angeles.
New York's probably number one. Look at New York's population and what ethnicity it was in like 1950 compared to now. And you could look at other countries, like for example, in London, the most important city in the United Kingdom, I believe over 50% of the population in London is foreign born. This is their capital city.
But
Overran by
regardless, the
people that
British
weren't born here.
culture, like people don't value, or they don't value, but they admire people admire American culture. It's not going anywhere, Rob.
What is American culture?
Stuff like, I don't know, like rock, Metallica, Blink 182, baseball, um,
So the
I don't
world
know,
likes
like
baseball and it's not going anywhere. What's
country music, you
first
know,
off, like I don't think that what you say what means you're American. You like
I
Blink
think 1A,
182.
2A, 1A, 2A, the Constitution, freedom of speech. Um,
Freedom of
Yeah,
speech. Do we have a
people
major
do
political we
admire American
we have a
culture,
major
dude.
political party that was literally promoting a disinformation board saying that we don't have a right to things like hate speech and that we need to censor dangerous misinformation online. That's what our intel communities are up to. That ain't freedom of speech.
Yeah, I mean, I
This is
think
the same
that
question.
should
By
be
the way,
defended. I think that
I've
should
seen them
be
ask this question over and over
deal
and over
breaker.
again. What does it mean to be British? You got an answer?
Um, I mean, I'm much less knowledgeable on British culture, but I don't
Okay, what's
know.
it
I
mean to
guess
be an
like
American?
beans and toast or something, and
What's it mean to be an American?
it means being able to have an opinion, and although not all opinions have the same weight, but being able to express that freedom of speech, being able to um purchase a firearm, being able to
Okay, so then anybody
speak
in the
to power,
world,
pretty much. I would
anybody in
say
the
encapsulates it pretty well.
anyone in the entire world that's for free speech and firearm rights is an American?
No, 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 no. I'm not done. But being able to speak truth to power, I guess is the term or the
Okay,
phrase.
anyone
But I
who
mean,
does all of those three things is
it's
American. I'm in Australia. I'm for free speech. I want to speak truth to power. I want firearms. Am I American?
I mean, American is liberty and justice. I know it sounds like I'm just
Okay, I'm in Australia. I'm for
name
liberty and
dropping.
justice. Am I
Dude, like,
American?
where are you getting at with this, Rob?
The point is, this isn't an answer to what it is to be an American because you could certainly say that there are categories of people that we would say aren't objectively aren't American who believe in all
What's
the
your
things you
answer
talked
then?
about.
What's your answer
Japanese
then?
person could
What is
be.
being American?
Well, that's a great question, right? Let me get through this real quick. Let's say that I'm born and bred in the United States and that my dad teaches at Harvard, and I actually think we should repeal the First and Second Amendment. Am I American?
If you're
I've been
native
here for
born, you
5
believe those
generations.
things.
What's that?
I would say no. I would say you're less American than some people
Okay, so then Democrats
who
universally want to
immigrated and believe
restrict
those
gun
things.
rights. You would say they're less American.
I mean, if they're native born, it's hard to make that argument. But I would say that people can say that they are less American, at least in at least at some level, at least in a like yeah. I mean, I think you have to want to uphold the principles and values that the country was founded on.
Okay, well, there's certainly a lot of people that call themselves American that's not the case for.
And I think those people are I know like people are proud to be fascist or whatever, and I think even though they're native borns, I think they're not American. I think they're
But
um
I don't think that's the case. Even you equivocated there. You were like, "Well, it makes you less of an American. Less of an American, still an
yeah, I'm not
American."
I misspoke. They're I'm not saying that they're not American if somebody's native born and they believe that fascism is the way to go. I'm not saying that they're not American, but
If
I
you
would say
believe
that
in
they're less
Sharia law,
American.
if you believe in Sharia law, are you an
Exact
American?
antithetical. What was that?
If you believe in
Last
Sharia
one.
law, are you an American?
If you want Sharia law implemented in the United States, no.
Yes. Okay. So if we could point, like, what percentage of Somalians would want Sharia law, and we could see that a huge number of them want Sharia law, we would say these people aren't Americans. Get them the fuck out, right?
I actually kind of agree with that. Yeah, I don't think that the government should be any type of theocracy.
Let's see. Let's see if we could find some numbers on that.
Now, your gripe is specifically against Somalians. You have something,
Well, no, it's not just
like,
Somalians. I would say this
but
would
I
be
mean,
ubiquitous with third world Muslims, etc. 93%
it
of
seems like
Somalians in Somalia want
Somalians
Sharia
really. Go
law.
ahead.
Uh, uh, a study for the Center for Policy Security found 51% of Muslims in America thinks that each community should have the choice of Sharia law and Sharia courts.
The choice of following Sharia law, like within their own.
They should
Um,
they should have
home.
Sharia courts. They could
So
choose to go to a Sharia court.
50% of Somalians think that
Well,
there
this
should
was
be
Muslims. This was
Sharia
Muslims in general.
law. Say that again.
This is
Muslims in
Muslims
general.
in general. Yes.
I mean,
93% of Somalians in Somalia support Sharia law. And we're not just taking the ones that are fleeing there, that have been vetted. We're taking them as refugees. So unless you think that they magically change their opinion on Sharia law when they get here, it would seem to suggest many of them would support Sharia law.
I mean, if the same with, I just think that if that's the case, then yeah, that shouldn't be allowed, and they should be. If somebody wants to implement Sharia law in the United States or any type of theocratical law, uh, yeah, I don't think that that has any place in American.
The point
Uh,
that I'm trying to make is, right, that what we've accepted is, as we've had this sort of globalist project that says we don't have the right to, like, say we want to protect our cultures, etc., is we lose all meaning is what it means. Basically, what it means to be an American now is legally you're on U.S. soil and the government says you're American. Same with Britain. So if I say, oh, what's the characteristics of a British person? You might say, bad teeth and, fish and chips and they, white governor, and talk like that. And it's like, no, actually, it's this Jamaican looking dude. He's
well,
British. And you'd be like, yeah, I guess he is British.
so
And
you
it's the
said
same
the
with America.
choice, right? So that you're saying that 50% of Muslims want Sharia
I
law
said one
courts or
study
something like that
shows that.
to have the choice.
Yes.
I mean, or the opportunity for that
Well,
to be a
the
reality.
way our courts work is we don't allow a system that says, well, I could voluntarily think that you should be held under Sharia. Like, let's say that I'm a Christian extremist, right? And I'm like, I think I should have the right, if I want my community to be held under Christian extremism law, to do that. And you say, oh, okay. That's not saying it's forcing on other people. And I go, great, that woman had an abortion. We're going to stone her to death. And you'd say, whoa, whoa. And I'd say, oh, you agreed that as long as my community wants to have Christian courts in the name of my religion, we should be allowed. That's not forcing it on you. So why shouldn't I be allowed to stone my wife if she had an abortion?
No,
See
that's
the
bullshit.
problem? It doesn't really help to say, well, they just want it to be a choice in their communities. And actually, this is what happens. We see all throughout the Western world that you see a lot of people when you talk about low crime stuff. Basically, they resolve disputes within their own communities, and so they set up de facto unofficial Sharia courts, and they're making these decisions, right? So they're not taking it to the fucking magistrate down the street,
But
right?
when it comes to those types of issues, I just completely disagree with the whole force doctrine, mantra, because I think that there should be a separation of church and state. The church can't be taxed by the government, and no specific church, no specific religion should be able to govern laws around their religion.
But
So
that's
whether
not
it's
what
Muslim
separation
or
of
whether
church
it's
and
Christian,
That's not what
yeah,
separation of church and state meant. Separation of church and state meant there shouldn't be an official state religion. It did not mean that specific religions couldn't enforce their code of morality and law through their religion in our legal system. In fact, at the founding of the Constitution and the signing of it, there were official state religions. There were different forms of Christianity. In fact, some states said you had to be a Christian to vote. The Constitution didn't say you can't do that. They not
but
only knew about it, they signed it and said it was acceptable.
but
So,
you can't
yes, it's
force.
one thing to say the United States government can't come over and say the official church of the United States government is Roman Catholic. Of course, Constitution is expressed. You can't do that. But there's nothing in the Constitution that says that you can't use your religion to influence laws. Now,
Right,
having
right.
said
But
that, my version of Christian nationalism, etc., would be vastly different than what a lot of people that would be more strict would be. For example, I'm not suggesting everything that I would view in the law as a sin should be made illegal. Do I think that it's a sin to be homosexual? Yeah. Should it be illegal? Probably not. Right? See the difference? But the
right, okay,
idea,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's different than something like Sharia law. Sharia law is like, these are religious courts. You know, there is an official state religion. The religious law is the highest law. That's different.
Yeah, no, I
And the
completely
idea of
disagree
force
with that.
doctrine, this just shows me that you've watched Andrew and you probably don't. Force doctrine is not a subscription, it's a description. Andrew's not saying, this is how I want things to be. Andrew is saying, this is how things are. Your rights exist purely because of force. That's what it is, and it's true. What right do
So,
you think you have, and why do you have it?
so when we look at, for example, Jews who they have, Israel, where, the Bible, the Old Testament, is more influential in their government than the U.S. And Jews in the U.S. they don't try and impose their beliefs and force their beliefs. For example, when it comes to abortion, they say we're not gonna abort, we're not gonna partake in abortion, but it shouldn't be illegal. That's
Well, that's
more or
not
less what
true.
I'm getting at.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly that could be true of some Jewish people. In fact, there's an awful lot. In fact, if you're talking to someone who's not too fond of the Jewish folks, they might say, actually, they push abortion, particularly with the Gentile population, on purpose. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that a lot of people would say that. But certainly it's true that there are people of Jewish faith that are vehemently against abortion and think it should be outlawed. My good friend Zach Gilpey is Jewish. I guarantee if he calls into the call-in show tomorrow, I say, what do you think should the law be with abortion? He'd be like, ban it. It's murder. He's Jewish. And part of the reason he thinks it's murder is his religion. Yes, he thinks that God has created this spirit. So, I mean, you can't universally say no Jewish people in the United States want to ban abortion. That's not true at all. As a collective, is it part of like official synagogues and stuff? That I'm not sure of. I don't know about that. But we're
Well,
talking about Jewish people that are like 1% to 2% of the population. What if all of a sudden they were 20% of the population? You think they'd be pushing more for their religious preferences to be enshrined in law? Probably.
yeah, I mean, what I'm basically getting at is in the same way that trans people want to force their delusions, I would say, when it comes to feeling like they're in the wrong body and wanting to transition, in the same way that they want to sort of force that mentality onto people. I don't think any religion should want to force their beliefs on abortion, that fetuses and zygotes are children. I don't think that
Well, it's not a
those.
belief, that's science.
Uh, I mean,
Don't you think
again,
that the way, do
time
you
is a
agree with this?
factor.
Do you agree with
We're
this?
given
Do you
rights
agree with,
according to
let me ask you
time.
this. Do you agree at some point this becomes a human life, a fetus?
Yeah, after a certain amount of time.
And do you
Just
think we
like
should be allowed to kill that human life?
it's is it a human life? It's yeah. I mean, it's going to be a human life, right? But like, you don't consider. Do you give moral value to, like, say, an fertilized egg from off the bat? Do you right away give it?
I give value to human life, and if I think a fertilized leg is human life, then I do. This would be I could turn the question on you. If you say, well, it requires the ability to survive, like out of a womb or out of mechanical, okay, well, so then a man in a coma is no longer human. If he requires a respirator, he's no longer human. If he's unconscious, he doesn't have value as a human.
No, but there's a difference between a zygote or fetus, that it's more similar to.
The point is
Hopefully, this
this.
doesn't sound
Is there a
too
point? The
egregious, but a
point is this.
parasite.
The point is this. Is there a point in where you think it is a human life and therefore should not be allowed to be killed? Whatever that point is there a point of that to you? Or is it only at birth?
No, no, no. I don't think abortion should be legal until 8, 9 months. I think
So then
there's
you would
a.
agree at some point it becomes a human life and you say you can no longer abort it with caveats of like the woman's life in danger or some shit like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, right. I don't value a
Okay.
fertilized egg. Like, for
Well then
example, I'm not up in
well then
arms about
then
somebody
the
getting
question
planted.
isn't then the question that you provided to me is sort of you can answer your own question, right? It's not it's just a matter of threshold. It's not a matter of you're like, I don't want people that think it's a zygote. What you want is the scientific proof. You want where science may change. Maybe what we thought of fetuses in the 1970s, maybe we said, well, if we're going to say human life means that it would be, the ability to have brain activity. And maybe in 1970, they thought that was at 17 weeks, but maybe now in 2025, they think it's at 6 weeks, right? In other words, you wouldn't say, well, I'm unwilling to fucking listen to people that say 4 weeks, because you'd say, well, maybe if science is able to objectively prove that, I would say, okay, it's 4 weeks, right? So the argument that you're making here that it's like, well, I don't want people making these choices just because. What you want is science to look at it and say, when is the best idea we have of when this is a human life? And then we decide you can't exterminate it anymore. And I would love to have you have debates with people that talk serious scientists, because guess what the majority of learned scientists talk about on this? You know when they say life begins?
When
Conception.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that. I think time is like we're given rights according to time, right? So I think personhood should be, and I know personhood is like a term, like a new age, modern term or whatever. But yeah, I think after a certain time, it's no longer life that just responds to stimuli. At some point, there's some kind of synchronization between the brain and there's brain activity and body, right? There's a synchronization there. So, and I think from what I
But
understand,
again, that
your 21,
your
22
definition there, your definition is going to run into problems. For example, we could see a desynchronization of brain activity in the body with people that we all would agree are humans. For example, I'm in a car wreck or something, or I get dementia. Right? We wouldn't say, well, that person's no longer a human, because our definition is there has to be some level of synchronicity with the brain and the body.
No,
and
I mean,
it would depend on how you define that synchronicity in the first place.
That's kind of like the initial catalyst.
So
and then
once you're a human, you're always a
uh,
human. That's
that?
it. So whatever you have a definition of synchronicity between brain and body activity. Once you clear that metric once, then no matter what happens to you post that, you're always considered a human life. Even if that synchronicity goes away.
Example, when you're saying that people who have some kind of condition that doesn't allow mind and body or brain and body to be synchronized, I think if that were to be turned off or whatever, I don't think that automatically disqualifies you from having life or from.
The problem is that once you agree that once there is a time before the child is born that we consider it a human life, and that it is immoral to allow the extermination of that life except under rare circumstances, like when the mother's life's in danger, you're just now in a threshold debate. When do you subjectively feel that is? A lot of people say this is why I suggest this. Some people might say heart activity. Some people might say brain activity. Some people might say viability, when it could exist outside the womb, even with medical intervention. Some people might say when it could exist outside the womb without medical intervention. Some people might say, like you're saying, I've never heard this, but this synchronicity argument. I would bet that if I had like some biologist here, they'd be able to say, actually at conception, there is synchronicity with like a nervous system and sort of the material we see outside of it. I bet that probably exists to some degree. Nonetheless, some people might say consciousness, whatever that might be defined as. All of these are different metrics we could use to decide. But I think that to make light of like, well, this person's metric, I just think I'm incredulous about. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. And then you have to understand that the other side of this equation is people that say, nope, arbitrarily I say that life doesn't begin until birth. As if a 9-month fetus, 2 minutes before breaching, is not a human, but 2 minutes later is a human, which is nonsensical. And that's basically the standard Democrat position on abortion. It should be strictly between a woman and her doctor. That's the standard position.
Hardly anybody believes that it's okay to abort a child when there's 7-8 months into the pregnancy. Hardly anybody believes that.
That's not true. They might think it's bad, but they don't think it should be illegal.
I mean, when the life of the mother is in danger, but I've heard this argument before that priority should be given to the more socially adjusted individual, right? Because newborn obviously is going to require a lot of care, a lot of resources to even get to the point where the mother is, to where it could reproduce, right? So it ultimately for society
But
becomes
the
somewhat.
Democrat position is it should be exclusively between a woman and her doctor. And they might say, I would be appalled if that woman wants to have an abortion at 9 months. And you'd say, oh, okay, then you would pass a law that not allow that.
I don't
And
agree.
almost every Democrat I talk to says, well, no. And I'm like, so you wouldn't pass a law? Yeah, but no one would do it, and I would think it was gross. But nonetheless, should she legally be able to?
No,
Because the problem
not
is
not
once they
not
say,
not my
well,
opinion.
okay, yes, we should say that there's a law that you can't do that. Then the argument becomes, oh, so it's not just between a woman and her doctor. For example, when Dr. Oz ran here in Pennsylvania against John Fetterman, one of the arguments that Fetterman made over and over was attacking Dr. Oz, who admittedly said something clunkily, but that was objectively true. He was like, look, I'm not interested in a nationwide abortion ban. I think that it should be up sort of some local lawmakers, a woman and her doctor. And they were like, oh, you think some fucking lawmaker should have some say about a woman's body? That's gross. You want some alderman? Well, no, what he's saying is clearly there should be a legal framework for when we're allowed to have abortion. And they're like, no, that's grotesque to suggest. And so then when you ask Fetterman's team, okay, what are you suggesting? Lawmakers should not be involved. It should be between a woman and her doctor. Okay, so if the doctor and the woman both say 9-month abortion, that should be legal. And they'll him and haw, they'll be like, well, but I don't think that's a good idea. You might not think it's moral, but the question is, should it be illegal? And
I
that's
think
the standard
people.
Democrat position. Otherwise, the Democrats have to admit, of course, we think there's laws that should make certain forms of abortion illegal. And now, because then they don't get to stand on this moral high horse about a woman's right to choose. They say, we too restrict a woman's right to choose. We just have that threshold at a different place than your average Republican. That's
I
it.
don't know that that's the standard, Rob. That's kind of. I'm sure some people believe that, but I don't think that's a standard
When you
in
say
that
that, if
specific
do
Democrat
you think
position.
that
I
it's
don't think that's
standard
true.
Democrat talking point that
Not
abortion
that
should
it's
be
okay to
between?
abort at 7, 8, or 9 months.
Do you think it is standard Democrat talking point that abortion should be between a woman and her daughter and not a politician?
Doctor, um, I don't think so. I think it's going to be on a case by case basis. With those people who believe that, it's probably because the mother has some kind of complication or the baby itself. Um, but generalize the entire left, entire
Well, it's not
yeah. I
okay.
don't think that's. I
Yes,
don't think
I
that's
could
true.
say I'm not saying that it's every single person on the left. I'm saying that this is the standard belief in what they say. The standard Democratic talking point is we don't control women's bodies. It should be between a woman and her doctor. The logical extrapolation of that is we don't pass laws to control a woman's right to choose. If their argument is, well, yes, we do, but just after 6 months, that doesn't have the same moral effect. Now, you're right that when they never want to answer the specific question, when you're like, oh, okay, so then it should be legal to have a 9-month abortion, they'll him and haw. But their literal words and the logical extrapolation of it is solely between a woman and her doctor would imply that there is no room to pass any sort of law.
I'm sure some people believe that, Rob. Like I said, but I don't think I don't. I think if you were to ask the average Democrat, the average lefty, I don't think that they would be okay with late term abortion. Not
Ask
that.
the average again. First off, we're not asking the average Democrat. We're averaging the Democrats that are running for office. And second, we're not asking if they're okay with it. We're asking whether or not it should be illegal. For example, you might say if you ask the average Eastern Orthodox person, they wouldn't be okay with gay marriage. That doesn't mean they would say it should be illegal. Now, they may say it should be illegal, but just saying they would, or let's even go further. If you ask the average Orthodox, they would say, we're against homosexuality. Oh, so you want to make it illegal? We didn't say that. We just said we're against it. See the difference?
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Probably the majority of people would be like, yeah, I don't like that. In fact, almost everyone I talk to says, yeah, that's gross. And it's like, should it be illegal? Well,
I see the distinction, right? That you shouldn't either force anybody to do anything or make anything illegal, right? The freedom to do something should not be.
I'm pretty sure the
Um,
Kamala Harris position, I'll have to look this up later, but
but
nonetheless,
yeah, I
we'll
mean,
end on this because I've been going for
right,
3.5 hours, so we're going to get back to what I was talking about.
r-
Like,
right. I'm just going to go ahead and conclude here by saying that again, dude, I did come in hot, and a lot of it unwarranted. Or I understand if you don't accept my apology. I understand whatever
you can
you
say
did
what you want
20
about me.
times.
Don't ever talk shit to my wife, though. I
Yeah,
wouldn't talk
dude.
shit on your wife or
Nah,
your
bro.
girlfriend, did I?
That was fucked up.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. And I understand whatever you do to my account, whether you ban me or
I'm
not.
not going to ban you. I'm just saying don't ever do it again, or I will. The other thing is, like,
Nah, you have
aside
a
from
lovely family, bro. You have a lovely family.
thank you. Aside from questioning
And
my
I'm
work ethic and my job history, like, you also seem to question my intelligence. After we've had this long conversation, you still think I'm really dumb?
I don't. I mean, I don't think I ever said that, did I?
It
I
seemed to be
think.
you implied that I was lacking some sort of intellectual.
I think I said that. You're. I might have said something along the lines of you being good rhetorically, but um taking advantage of your audience, or I might have said that you have a condition. I think that's what I said, that you might have a condition, and I'm sorry about that. That was a little
I
dude.
don't think
Look,
I'm a genius
I
or
don't think
anything,
you're
but I
dumb, okay,
think that
bro.
I'm well
I don't think you're
reasoned.
dumb.
I think
I
I'm
think
well reasoned and articulate in the positions that I decide to defend. That's what I
yeah.
think. And I think
I don't think I ever
as
said you're
this.
dumb, bro.
All right, all right,
I
man.
think I said that you might have a condition, and that but like when I said that, I mean that you, like, you think of things logically, um like almost too logically, almost without a practical sense of
So
I don't know if I'm
just,
making myself understood, but
I know this
and
is.
I think I have some of that too, like as far as thinking about things too like
I, all right. I
logically
just want to
and
say this
as
last piece
opposed to
because your
real
mic's
world
cracking up here. But I will
practicality.
say this: some examples of Kamala Harris, who, lest we forget, was the de facto choice for the Democrat candidate for president. Here's some quotes of hers on abortion. April 2023, Harris wrote, "No one should stand between a woman and her doctor." June 2023 speech marking the 1 year anniversary of Dobbs, which overturned Roe v. Wade, she said, "We stand for the freedom of every American, including the freedom of every person everywhere to make decisions about their own body, their own health care, and their own doctor." October 2024, criticizing Trump's stance on reproductive rights, she stated, "We believe the government should never come between a woman and her doctor." In September 2024 CNN interview, she said, "A woman and her doctor should make the decision, not Washington." So what she's saying here is there should be no law. That was the candidate for president. So yes, is it true that my neighbor that's a Democrat would say, "Oh my God, of course I would be against
You're
9-month
not a good
abortions."
candidate.
But their candidate that they voted for absolutely was for saying there should be no law. So it's not a fringe belief. This is the mainstream political belief of the Democratic Party.
I mean, yeah, she was a bad candidate. I did not vote for her. I opted out. And yeah, I mean, that's a little that's out there. I don't agree with that. I
What do
think
you think Biden said? You did vote for him.
there should be a time limit. Biden, just because of the current situation at the time, just with every day under Trump seemed like anything could happen, dude. Like we can be going to war with someone, or like something. It seemed like something crazy could happen any day, and I just kind of wanted some like
Joe Biden,
stability.
January 2024. Vice President and I believe that healthcare decisions should be made by women and their doctors, not politicians.
Yeah, I mean,
They said
like
that
I said,
over
I
and over
voted
again.
based off of the context, the situation that was ongoing, with regards to like, um, yeah, with foreign affairs, and yeah, I chose the lesser of two evils, Rob. Okay,
Well,
and
no, that's reasonable. That look, I won't shame you for that. I think you made the wrong decision, but fair enough. The point I'm trying to make is on this particular issue, this is the mainstream Democratic position. There should be no law. It should be between a woman and her doctor. That's all I'm saying. You could say, yeah, that's fucked up, but I still favor them as the lesser of two evils. And you'd say, don't you do the same, Rob? Aren't there specific things you don't like about Trump, but you still voted for him? I'd say, yeah, you're right. So I'm not saying, I'm just saying, I'm pushing back at the idea that it's like, no one really believes that's a Democrat. No, that's the official position of the Democratic Party at this point. That is the heart of who they are on abortion, that there should be no law. Now, the average Democrat voter might not be for that, but that's the moral stance that Democrats
okay,
have taken.
there's a difference, right, between the representatives and the yeah. I mean, I see what you're
I
saying. The
agree with
distinction
that.
you're making between the politicians and the general public. But yeah, I mean, a lot of lefties do have these pie in the sky ideas about how things should work, and that's what I mean when I say that logically that that you're too logical. That that's sort of the same type of mentality that happens on the left, but without the real world practicality of implementing these ideas. And so yeah, it's just sort of the polar opposite of what happens on the left. But yeah, I mean, I do think that you provide a perspective that's you know that's reflective of what the right is currently thinking. And yeah, man, I tune in, dude. I tune into your show
Well,
to
you
see
can
what
call
you
me a fat fuck and an idiot and all that shit all you want. Just don't
yeah,
talk
dude.
about my wife and we'll be good. So
All right. Again, I apologize for that, and I hope you have a happy New Year's
I accept the
and
apology. I do. And I will have a happy new year. So,
clutch. Okay. Hey, have a good night, Rob, and
all right. You
yeah,
too, Warren. Take it
I'll
easy.